Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two Mikes, and I'm going to give you old energy boy, MG, to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha. You cannot just turn a cow on and off. Death is, not as good as living.
This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. We're in for Hawksbee and Jacobs for some considerable period of time.
Is
It's
it?
time to say a very good afternoon to a very refreshed-looking
Yes.
Mr. Mike Parry.
Indeed.
A man who, in the past 2 weeks, has looked like a member of The Walking Dead, I'd have to say.
I think it's absolutely true to say that.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Good to be back, obviously, behind the old mic and free of the secret mission.
Yes.
I'm now prepared to reveal what the secret mission was.
Well, to be honest, everybody kind of knew what the secret
they
mission
did,
was
but I
on the
couldn't-
basis that you'd said what it was about a month before you started calling it a secret mission.
But then when you're doing it, you can't. But I've been on jury service
Have you?
at a Crown court,
Goodness me.
and
I had no
unfortunately,
idea.
it spilled over into yesterday. So I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday. But
I
but
can't
then,
imagine anything worse than being locked in a room with you, by the way, for hours and hours on end.
what about the other 11 that I got locked in with? I mean, there's,
What do you think they would say if I asked them?
Well, I don't know. They're all very nice people.
We're not allowed
and,
to talk about that, though, are we?
and we can't talk about anything that happens inside the
No,
jury room.
of course.
I can't even tell you the colour of the wallpaper
Really?
inside the jury room.
Oh, well, you can't tell me it had wallpaper then, can you?
No, I can't. I'm not saying it
Did
did.
it have wallpaper?
I'm not saying it did.
Right.
I'm not saying it did or it didn't or
Okay.
what happened, okay?
All right.
And,
Did you by any chance make yourself the foreman?
I did. I did because I thought some direction and specific guidance was needed.
Yeah. You see, if you and I had been on it, I don't think I'd have let you be the foreman.
Well, I'll tell you something.
We'd have had to be joint foreman.
Look, I can't get into what happens inside a jury room, so I'm not
Thank
going to talk
goodness for
about that. But I thought I made my contribution to the legal system in this country.
Did you?
And
well,
all
it's
is
still standing, I suppose, so we can be
still
thankful for
standing.
that.
All is well in the world. But
Well done. Do you feel a sense of sort of public duty accomplishment, that sort of thing?
do you know what? I am going to deeply think about the jury service and probably write a very deep-thinking piece for a political magazine about the jury
For a
service.
political magazine?
Yes.
What, like the New Statesman?
Yes, that's right, like that. New Statesman,
Do you know anyone there?
Spectator, something like But when
Well,
they see
you've got to
it...
submit some kind of unsolicited
No,
manuscript. Don't
no,
just
no.
put it in the bin.
No, when they
like
see
all
it...
the other stuff that they get sent in
Well,
by maniacs
well,
who think that they've got something to say.
When they see it, be amazed, because I'm going to advocate that we should have professional jurors in this country, because I just don't think you can leave some of the decisions that have to be made to people who
Well,
just
whatever happened to the 12
walking off the
good
street.
men and true?
Yeah, but the problem
Jury
is...
of your peers and all that.
The problem is, there's far too many in 12, because, how can you possibly ever get 12 people thinking in the same direction?
Well,
you can't.
do, and you did.
Well, that I can't talk about
allegedly.
that. But the point is, I think they need
Yeah, but it
professional
works.
jurors.
The system works,
And do you know why? Because you have to. I think you should be able to interpret. Well, if you've got a defendant in a court, you should be able to interpret his body language. You should be able to interpret his language and the way he's speaking.
Right.
Well,
you can do that, can't you?
No, but you should have had experience of hundreds more cases, in the legal system to be able to make these judgments. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
The other thing is that, it can
But surely
simply...
that's the point. I mean, the court system is full of experts. You've got barristers, you've got QCs, you've got, solicitors, you've got judges, you've got witnesses, you've got all sorts of people.
Also...
And the reason for having ordinary people is that they see things as in an ordinary way.
You know that there was often...
Are you just talking about this so we'd avoid talking about Everton?
No. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm not going to avoid that. That's a bad situation. And by the way, I'm in an Everton sandwich at the moment because I went to Southampton.
There's another word for that.
No. You see, this is a family show.
Yeah, I know that.
Now, I went to Southampton on Sunday, and that wasn't a good experience.
And what was the last game you went to?
I don't know.
It was Stamford Bridge, I can tell you.
Stamford Bridge.
And what was the score there?
5-0.
5-0 to Chelsea.
And 1-0 to Southampton.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to Goodison on Sunday.
When was the last time you actually saw Everton score a live goal?
When we beat West Ham 2-0 at Goodison. So I'm going to Goodison.
When was that?
Eh?
When was that?
It's about a month ago, wasn't it, you
Was
idiot?
Well, I don't know. I'm
Season's
not the man.
only 2 months old,
Well,
3 months old.
3 months old, more like 4 or 5.
Now, hang on.
Go on.
So I'm going to Goodison on Sunday for Everton versus Manchester United,
Yeah.
top game. I tell you what, there's a couple of reputations on the line in that game. Mr. Koeman and Jose Mourinho.
Well, we're going to talk about Jose Mourinho.
We are in a minute. Anyway, getting back to the juries.
Yeah, go on.
Like years
Same
ago.
time, by the way.
Years ago, in the sort of 90s, when Terry Venables was running England and all that.
Decades ago.
There was always a sort of claim that there were a couple of cliques in the England camp, and one of them was Manchester United players, and there was Liverpool players. Well, I think you get that with jurors. I think you get little cliques, you know what I mean? I think people are...
Well, people tend to join
to
together.
gravitate to each other,
They
that's
do.
right. And
but I imagine
therefore,
you wouldn't have suffered from that.
I didn't speak to anybody.
People don't gravitate towards you.
I didn't speak to anybody. I maintain my total independence throughout. But what I'm saying is, if you suddenly become friendly...
You have a table for one inside the jury room.
That's funny, do you?
I do.
Eh?
I know you can't answer the
I'm trying to
question.
take the legal process seriously,
All right.
and all you're doing is you're full of mockery. And what I'm saying is, if you if you've got a little clique of 4 jurors who've spent a lot of time talking about things like one of them is having a forthcoming wedding or something like that.
Well, you can't reveal any of this.
No, this is outside of the jury room.
I see.
This is outside of the jury room when they've gone into a lunch break, from the normal open session of the court. Anything that happens in court, you can speak about. It's open justice. But if they spend then 3/4 of an hour, chatting about a forthcoming wedding and all that, they get terribly friendly with each other. Yeah. And then when decisions have to be made, are you under peer pressure not to upset your friend and all this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, there might even be more complicated relationships than that grow during a long period
of
a jury.
Yes, there could be.
When you have those long cases going for months and months and months.
Well, do you know what?
And the jury gets sequestered in a hotel.
Well, funny enough, the court I was in, there was a smashing 4-star hotel over the road. And I thought to myself, I bet a bit of shenanigans, within, the legal process must have gone in over there over the years. You know what I mean?
I see. Hey? Now, I've got a couple of good tweets here for you already.
Right.
Gordon says the new 2-word phrase is going to be added to the Porky Dictionary, Everton 0. Now, I've got to ask you, 43 seconds was the time the first goal was scored, the only goal was scored at Southampton. Were you actually in your seat at that point?
Yes, of course I was.
So
I've been in my seat. I like seeing the teams come out. I
Yeah.
like all the paraphernalia before the game. I like to see the...
Paraphernalia?
I think they had a few rockets that went off and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
You sure you just had a good lunch?
I had a good lunch. Actually, I tell you something. I was in the President's Lounge, right? And,
President who?
Hey?
President who?
Well, the president of the club, you idiot.
Oh, right.
And it was lovely. It was a sit-down lunch, and I didn't realise I had those tickets. I'd bought the tickets sort of...
Well, they were quite expensive tickets.
They're very expensive tickets, but I thought I was in the McShannon Lounge, because that's where I was last year, and I couldn't work out why my ticket didn't say McShannon Lounge.
Right.
So I went to the McShannon Lounge.
Right.
And they
Even
said,
though the ticket said they weren't,
that's right,
there.
the President's Lounge.
What a complete and utter idiot.
You're in the President's Lounge,
And so what did you get for lunch that was different from the McShannon Lounge?
Well, it's a sit-down with a table and a waiter service and all that.
Rather than a buffet?
Well, it was a buffet, actually, but you still got a waitress who brought you wine and all that kind of stuff, But,
so not much different from the McShannon Lounge, then?
Oh, yeah, because in the McShannon Lounge, it's you're not allocated a table. There's just a few spare tables. You go and grab one. This one, well, as I walked in, yes, sir, Mr. Parry, I'll take you to your table and all that kind of stuff.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah,
right, okay.
yeah. So that was...
very nice.
Yeah.
But a pretty waste of a day out, though, pretty much, though, wasn't it?
Well, no, not really, because Southampton's a good place to go, really,
Well, you called Southampton a dump the last time we talked about Southampton.
I've never said that.
You have called it a dump.
I don't think I've ever said that.
Yes, you have.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But anyway, obviously, it wasn't a good result.
Well, we're going to have to talk about the crisis at Everton. Because
there is no crisis at Everton.
Well, I mean, you've been telling me for the last few weeks that Koeman is this great manager who's going to shore up the defence.
Yes.
And the last 2 games you've been to, 6 goals have gone in and there's been no reply at the other end.
OK, let me ask you this. Where are Everton in the Premier League table?
They're at 7th, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. That is not a crisis, is it?
Well, it depends on whether you want to get Champions League football or not. If you want to get Champions League football, it's a crisis. It's a crisis for Jose Mourinho to be down there.
Yes.
Should be for Everton.
All I can say is we are 3 months into the revolution with Mr. Koeman arriving.
Yeah.
I have faith. I have absolutely no doubt it'll work out. Yeah. It is frustrating.
It's all starting to sound very similar to the Martinez regime.
It is. He started off like a house on fire because he inherited...
but for weeks and weeks you said Martinez was a great manager.
No, he inherited David Moyes' team, and he just kept it going the first season. Yeah, don't worry about the time, man, because there's lots to talk about.
It's an afternoon show,
and
so you can't just ramble on.
I believe the Koeman revolution will indeed bring fruition.
Really?
Fulfil the fruition that we
you
aspire
don't know what
to.
you're talking about.
No,
making
really,
absolutely no sense. He is Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham with it. Also, we are in for Hawksbee and Jacobs. We'll be here for all of this week and a bit of next week as well. Waity says this: as Mike Parry describes today's programme as a family show, what example is he setting to children by calling Mike Graham an idiot?
What?
That's certainly a very, very good point. And very, very well
just
made.
An affectionate term. Don't worry about that.
And Gabriel says the only jury Porky's able to sit on would have to have a jukebox attached to it.
Hey, I like that.
And for some reason, Rob has sent a very, very good-looking poster review done up as Rambo.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Parry Rambo, the fight continues.
Well, I felt so good in my liberation last night from the judicial system.
Liberation?
Yes,
You don't mean bladderation?
No, liberation. And I surfed the channels, and they're all Rambo... is it Rambo 2 or Rambo 3? I think it's Rambo...
Well, for the first movie, it's actually called First Blood, isn't it?
Yeah, First Blood. Rambo First Blood. Yeah, that's right.
That's the first one.
That's the first one.
Where he's in that sort of little town.
That's right.
In the Pacific Northwest.
And he bit by bit takes the town apart and the sheriff and everything else. But the second one is when he goes in to get the POWs out. But, the CIA have plotted against him to leave him there and all this kind of stuff, and it's fantastic, really. He starts flying helicopters around and shooting the Russians down and all that. I like that.
It's actually the first Rambo movie is great.
Yes.
Absolutely terrific.
Yeah, totally great.
It's very, very good indeed. Now, so...
Well, of course, he's an Everton fan.
He is an Everton fan. Yeah. Well, is he an Everton fan or is he just a mate of Bill Kenwright's that actually kind of goes to the games?
No. An Everton fan.
Well, Creed was filmed there, wasn't it? That last
It was,
Rocky film.
It was, with Bellew.
Tony Bellew. Who's also an Everton fan.
Exactly, of course he is.
Who you hadn't heard of when we did a quiz on boxing.
Rubbish, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, why don't we talk about Tony Pulis? People are saying to me, why are you pronouncing his name Pulis as opposed to Pulis?
Well, it's Pulis, isn't it, I suppose? He's
it depends if you were to pronounce it like Ian Hollywood, Ian Holloway, rather. Who are you? You can pronounce it Pulis.
What about old Bobcat Bob?
I see they got slaughtered up in Ipswich, by the way.
Yes, they did, I'm afraid. Yeah, 3-0, was it?
It was 3-0.
3-0, that's right. Yeah, it was, who are you?
Well,
versus the Tractor Boys.
I have to say, we can't talk too much about some of the activities that we had on the warm-up, because that's a different show.
That's it, yeah.
But I did predict that Swansea would have their first win for Bobcat Bob.
You did.
And they did win 5-4 in an incredible game.
I'll give you that.
You did predict that wouldn't happen. You also predicted that Sunderland would beat Liverpool, which they didn't. And you also predicted... Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
My long shot bet was Sunderland to draw at Anfield, and after 89 minutes, it was just 1-0 to Liverpool. They'd only scored 5 minutes earlier.
It doesn't matter what
I was really nearly spot on.
Really nearly spot on? Is that a new phrase?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, you were also really nearly spot on with Everton-Southampton. You said Everton would win that, which they didn't. Yeah. You were also really nearly spot on with Lewis Hamilton becoming the world champion of motor racing, which he didn't do.
Now, listen, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I've got some very strong views about that. Old Bobcat Bob, by the way, he says, it's a game I'll never forget. I'll never forget this game. Well, I'm not sure what... I'm not sure if he meant he'll never forget the game because it was such a dramatic game.
Because it'll be the only one he wins.
I was going to say, it was his first and probably only victory before he gets the old,
he got them lifted,
yellow brick road
lifted off the bottom. So, the big momentum is now with him. You mustn't be unkind. I know you've said that he's not made out, he's not kind of designed for the Premier League. But, he's getting more experience.
Got you now, boy!
And he did say that his experience in Egypt and being the national coach there has helped him with his kind of ability to keep fighting and never give up.
You got a lot of people on my radar! Yeah, absolutely.
What about Pulis? Never mind him.
Well, you see, this is a difficult one because
it's a very interesting story.
This is a High Court case. Remember this?
Yes.
So this is a hearing in the High Court. Now, according to some reports this morning, court orders Pulis to repay Palace £3.7 million.
Yes.
Except that I've read another report which says it's near £6 million.
Is that right?
I mean, you're talking about extraordinary amounts of money here.
Oh, incredible amounts of money.
Absolutely extraordinary.
But isn't it a very bizarre thing that happened? He went to court basically to defend what he said was his position. He said that, in fact, a lot of vital evidence which he wanted to have admitted into the court was not admitted.
Yes.
And that's why he's lost.
Yes.
But effectively what we're told is that he went to Parish, right, and said, I need some money. 2 million. I need it early.
Well, there was an agreed bonus to be paid at a certain date.
Right. But he wanted it earlier than that because he said he wanted to buy some land for his children.
That's right.
Quite a lot of land you can buy for that sort of money.
Yeah.
And he said it's nothing to do with me wanting to leave because obviously I'm very loyal to the club and I would like this money just as a goodwill gesture from you.
Show of good faith.
He then gets the money. The next day he leaves.
Well,
that would appear to be what happened.
What I found extraordinary was that the case had already gone to the Premier League Managers Arbitration Tribunal, right?
Yeah.
That was in March, and they found in favour of Crystal Palace. Now, and at that one, Pulis denied that there'd been any deception involved. But then he took the case to the High Court, and that's where the extraordinary costs have built up by him taking it to the High Court. I mean, what kind of legal advice was he taking?
Well, it's always a bad idea to take anything to the High Court because it ends up costing you an absolute fortune.
That's right.
And it's going to take him something like 4 years now to make the money back that he's going to have to pay out.
But the biggest problem that Mr. Pulis has got here, and by the way, I like Tony Pulis. I think he's a straight speaker, and he's a tough individual.
Well, the judge in this case doesn't share your view.
I'm about to say to you the worst problem for Mr. Pulis is not the monetary damage, which he may be able to absorb, but his reputation as an honourable man has been completely shredded.
I mean, if you were the boss of West Brom, if you were the owners of West Brom, what would you be thinking now?
Well, if you read the reports from the judge and how he described Mr. Pulis, you would be extremely concerned, in my view.
You would, wouldn't you?
I'll tell you what you'd be doing now. You'd be checking the contracts and thinking, hang on.
Is there a bonus payment due?
Yes.
Because, I mean, there have been problems with Pulis and West Brom in the past, haven't there? At one point, everyone thought he was going to leave at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Mr. Justice Burton ruled that no such land transaction, the one you're talking about, existed, and that Pulis had never intended to stay at the club beyond August 31. The judgment read, Mr. Pulis secured early payment of his bonus by deceit. They're calling him by deceit in the judgment, OK?
Yeah.
In August 2014, the day after he dropped the bombshell that he intended to leave, leaving the club as must have been his intention in the lurch on the eve of the new season. His conduct prior to and during litigation has been shown to be disgraceful.
Yes.
That is a terrible indictment of any man in any job.
And his defence is that basically they wouldn't accept some of the evidence that he wanted to provide, which would have presumably cleared his name and would have given them the opportunity to say, well, this is what you did.
Well, if the judge said it was inadmissible, it's inadmissible, I'm afraid, and it wasn't put to the court. You know, it's as simple as that.
Somebody's calling me now. What sort of person calls me in the middle of a radio show?
Well, I don't know, but it'd be somebody who doesn't know what you do for a living, and there's plenty of them around in this world.
It's an unfamiliar number, I have to say.
Yeah, well,
although I did get a surprise phone call the other day.
Oh, yes?
From the police.
Oh, the police, right, okay.
Oh, I don't want to give his name away because I don't want to give his name away.
Shenanigans,
nothing to do with that. No, I'm completely not innocent. All I can say is that it's the ongoing investigation into my stolen shirts.
Yes.
Which were stolen about, 2 months ago now?
Yes, 2 months.
Finally, the police have got around to... What are you looking for?
Sorry, you just mentioned your phone. I can't find my... Oh, here it is. Got it.
Your phone is in front of you.
Information device. Yeah. Right, sorry. All right. Sorry, come on, tell us the story.
Yeah, so I mean, most people will know the story that my shirts were stolen from the dry cleaners by this sort of miscreant character
yes, that's right.
who also stole somebody's leather jacket.
It's a disgrace,
worth 500 quid down the road.
Disgrace.
But it's taken the police 2 months, right, to get around to looking at the CCTV footage, interviewing the woman who was responsible for giving the shirts away, and contacting me to say they want me to make a victim statement.
No, a victim.
A victim statement they want me to make, but I have to go to Rotherhithe Police Station and make this statement.
When you get shirts stolen, you become a victim.
Apparently, yeah.
Well, I mean, is this
do you think I might get some compensation?
I was going to say,
the Victims Crime Compensation Board.
Will you be walking around shirtless in this cold weather? Is that the victim problem?
Luckily, I've been able to buy some new shirts since then, but I've yet to receive any compensation from the cleaners for it. But so now I'm going to have to arrange to get this meeting sorted out with this police officer, who tells me, by the way, that the police station is not open to the public.
Yeah.
So when you pop down there, you have to ring this guy, and he comes down and opens the door.
Do you know?
I mean, what's the point of a police station that you can't walk into?
It's so bizarre. Near to where I live, there's a lovely little town called Banstead, right? Used to have a thriving police station.
You used to live there, didn't you?
I did, actually. In fact, I've still got a house there, actually. And
have you? Did you rent that to?
I don't know. Somebody.
You don't know?
Yeah.
You don't know who you rent it to?
It's somebody who has moved from a £2 million house nearby and downgraded to, downsized, so to speak.
Somebody down his luck, maybe?
No. What they've done is they rent out their £2 million house to somebody who works in the film industry. Right. And they have rented the one I've got, and the difference for them each month is about $3,000.
So that's how they make their money?
Yes, that's right, yeah, they live on
that. I wonder, young people can't get their hands on any
Well,
housing.
that's absolutely true. House
blocking is what you people are doing.
Well, I'm afraid it's, it's the real world. No, let me tell you. So Banstead used to have this little police station, a couple of cars, cop cars parked out the back, and you see cops coming in and out. Now, there's a phone on the front door. There's a phone on the front door. Right. When you go there, you pick up this phone. Right. I mean, I don't know what happens then, because I've never picked it up, actually. I've never felt the need.
Well, presumably somebody inside answers it.
No.
It's like assault on Precinct 13 or whatever.
No, I think somebody in Epsom answers it. This is the very point. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's the point of having it there?
Well, I've no idea.
Might as well sell it.
I don't know.
And put it into the pension fund.
That's
anyway, we've got lots more to talk about.
Next to a tool hire company.
What?
The tool hire company's next door. That's right, yeah.
We're going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton coming up, because some people thought that the race became a bit of a farce over the course of the last few laps, but I didn't think so. I thought it was brilliant. Anyway, we are the Two Mikes. This is TalkSport.
Where
is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. I've got this from Ryan, who's tweeted at the Two Mikes. Porky's impression of Bob Bradley sounds like Deputy Dog, which it actually does.
It's actually based, of course, on the cop in the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice.
Yes.
Get you now, boy!
Are you sure You Only Live Twice? No, I don't think it is.
No, Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die.
Don't sing. Singing in the afternoon.
Do you know what? That is one of the greatest sequences in all the Bond films.
What's that?
The riverboat chase in Live and Let Die with the speedboats and all that.
That's where he turns the car over in midair, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, absolutely.
And it sort of does a full revolution.
Brilliant, yeah.
I think I remember reading about that they actually had to try that sort of 55 times or so before it actually worked.
Do you know what, Mike? I think it's the opposite. I think he practiced the run-up to it 55 times, but only ever did it once.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they said...
And it happened.
Exactly. If you get it wrong, we're finished,
Well, funnily enough, we're talking about cars now, because Mark Priestley is here.
Indeed.
He is, of course, former McLaren mechanic and member of the pit crew, because Lewis Hamilton at the weekend, I think, did something which I'd never seen done before, which was to lead this very, very slow procession of cars, trying to get his teammate overtaken, so that he would become the world champion. A lot of people were critical of him and said, why would he do something like that? But I thought it was quite exciting.
Well, I have my own views on this. I did very much indeed. And look, introduce Mark, and I'm sure he'll have a view on it, but I don't think he wanted people to overtake Nico Rosberg. I think he wanted Nico Rosberg to panic and get himself into a crash.
What, you mean into a crash?
Yeah, well, either
out
of the race,
But either or. Let's ask Mark what he thinks. Mark, a very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, boys. How you doing?
Yeah,
Mark, very well, thank
Which
you.
of those scenarios was it? Was Lewis hoping for him to crash? Because, the danger was that he could have crashed into Lewis Hamilton, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Lewis went into that race, and actually his only hope, he needed, the mathematics were that Lewis needed to win the race, Nico needed to finish 4th position or worse, so off the podium positions. Now, that meant that Lewis only had one option, because they're the dominant cars. They could easily finish that race 1-2 in a standard sort of situation. So Lewis had to try and back them up. I think he was trying to do two things. One, he was trying to bring the Red Bull cars and the Ferrari cars into play, because normally they wouldn't be quick enough to do that. Yep. And he did do that. He brought them right up behind Nico, which put a little bit of pressure on Nico. The other thing, I think, is a little bit like you're saying. I think, he's looking to try and destabilise Nico a little bit. Try and put him under pressure, perhaps force a mistake. Yep. Either of those scenarios would have worked for him, but they were the only hope he had. So all these people criticising Lewis for the tactics, I think you've got to let that play out. I thought it was exciting. It meant the whole championship went down to the very last lap of the last race of the season. I think we've got to applaud him for that.
I totally agree with you, Mark, and bearing in mind that Lewis won his first World Championship on the very last corner of the very last lap of the very last race, didn't he? So
he did indeed.
Yeah.
And on that particular day, I was in the garage working with Lewis in McLaren, and so I know how much this means to the entire team. Yeah. The one thing that I would say, and this is where people have been perhaps critical of Lewis in a different way, is that he was instructed by his team to speed up.
Mark, this is what I want to put you, please.
Just before you ask the question, which I think I know you're going to ask, there was a lot of people who at the time said weren't these instructions rather untimely that he got, because it was right near the end of the race.
Not only that, but the thing is, there's going to be a meeting, right, Mark, we think, between Lewis Hamilton and Toto and all the people at Mercedes. When that meeting takes place, if I was Lewis Hamilton, I would walk into that meeting and I'd be the one demanding the apology. Because if a man's driving a car at 200 miles an hour and you're in his ear saying, go faster...
Well, no, he is used to people being in his ear.
Well, I agree, but the thing is, he had to engage in a debate with them. He actually said, didn't he, right now I'm losing the World Championship, so leave me to decide on my own tactics, please. And the idea that anybody in the pit crew should try and stop Lewis Hamilton from doing his best to retain his World Championship is, in my view, a disgrace.
Well, let me put this another way to you then. I absolutely agree with you, and I think Lewis is perfectly within his rights to do what he did on Sunday, so I have no issue with Lewis in that sense. The reason that the team came onto the radio and tried to get him to speed up was genuinely because he was going at such a slow pace that the Ferrari, the Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari, was genuinely coming into play on a fresher set of tyres. He was lapping nearly 2 seconds a lap faster than both of those Mercedes, and their race win was genuinely under threat. Now, the senior management sitting on the pit wall at the racetrack there in Abu Dhabi, had to make that call because they have the responsibility of 2,000 employees at Mercedes who've worked their socks off to put both of those drivers into that situation to win a Grand Prix. They get bonuses, cash bonuses based on race wins, which for those guys it can be a significant amount of money. And they also have to answer to the board of Mercedes-Benz, who've ploughed hundreds of millions of dollars into that Mercedes team to be the dominant force of this sport.
But they were never going to, A, they were never going to lose the Constructors' Championship, and B, surely we all know that Lewis Hamilton is such a good driver, he was never going to let a Ferrari whip past him.
Well, that's fair enough, and in the end it worked out perfectly, but going that slowly affects the temperatures of your tyres. It can really impact some cars more than others. Yeah. And when there's a threat to your race win, which there genuinely was, when these guys sit on the pit wall, they plug times into a system, and the data churns out numbers that tell you whether going at the current pace is going to affect your race win. And I think they had to make that call. The fact that Lewis ignored it and sort of disobeyed team orders is another thing altogether. And I think that is where Mercedes-Benz management, Toto Wolff, has a very, very difficult problem on his hands. What does he do to Lewis? How does he punish him? Does he punish him?
Well, how do you punish
Well, that's
the best
part.
driver?
I guess that's part of the whole equation, isn't
Yes.
it? Because as you say, they have to be seen to be saying what they said,
Yes.
even if he doesn't decide to follow
maybe.
their orders, Mark. But equally, what you get is a driver who doesn't just do what he's told because he believes he knows best. He's sitting in the car and he thinks that he understands the conditions. He understands what he needs to do to win. And he may not be a team player, but would you want anybody else sitting in that car instead of him?
No, you don't, and you want that streak in any of your Formula One drivers. You want somebody who's prepared to do, pretty much anything to win a Grand Prix for you.
Yeah.
However, you set a very dangerous precedent if you let any member of your team, and Lewis is an employee of Mercedes-Benz, if you let anybody disobey the team management, it can present problems going forward. So I think they need to find a very sort of careful way of putting an arm around Lewis, saying, look, we completely understand what you did. We understand it was perfectly okay. However, disobeying the instructions, we have to be seen to be doing something.
But Mark, this was also a man riven with, dark thoughts that there'd been, chicanery going on within the Mercedes team to try and give Nico an advantage.
He all but accused him of
sabotaging his car,
didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And this is part of the issue, that the relationship between Lewis and the Mercedes team has gradually been breaking down over the season. He's not in a good place in terms of that relationship. And so that's why this decision that the Mercedes-Benz management now have is an even more difficult one.
But there's nowhere for him to go, is there?
Well, there is nowhere for him to go. Is there nowhere for him to go? He's Lewis Hamilton. Every single team on the grid would move heaven and earth to get him in their team if they could. If they've
got a car that's competitive.
Well, of course, and that's where there's the one or two teams at the top, the Red Bulls, the Ferrari, who would absolutely jump at grabbing Lewis Hamilton. From Mercedes' point of view, they desperately don't want to lose him. I know the Fleet Street press have written about him being sacked or suspended. That's not going to happen. They can't afford to do that.
Of course not.
And what is the relationship in the end between Lewis Hamilton and the pit crew and the people to whom he answers? Because you do get the sense that there is a kind of frisson there, and also watching it at the end. A frisson. Yeah.
Frisson. Yeah.
Do you know what that means?
Yeah, I know what it means.
Sorry, my journalistic colleague here is not so well educated as us, I'm afraid, Mark. But never mind.
Ignore him.
When you saw them afterwards in the white room, and Lewis is staring at the screen on the wall, Rosberg's hugging whoever else is there apart from Lewis Hamilton, but then they had what looked like quite a genuine sort of hug on the podium. So, I mean, what's the truth about how disliked or liked Lewis Hamilton is?
Well, look, between those two drivers, they used to be pretty much best mates. If you look back at old footage of the two of them, they were all over each other. They were genuine. They used to share a room on tour when they were karting. They were genuinely childhood friends. So it's such a shame that relationship is broken down.
But I think it's inevitable, Mark. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'd like to hear what the relationship is like, rather than hearing what you think it's like.
Listen, just watch it. If you're as highly competitive as those two, you're not going to like your friend because he's trying to take your title off you.
Well, that's absolutely true, and that is what's happened. That relationship has broken down. They have mutual respect for each other, I think, but I genuinely think...
A bit like us. Our relationship's broken down years ago, but we're still working together.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think Nico has, a more respect, if you like, certainly publicly for Lewis than Lewis has for Nico. In every interview you've seen, particularly even post-race, Lewis was very quick to point out the reliability issues that he's had. Yeah. Those are the reasons that Nico has won this championship. In his mind, you can agree or disagree with that. But I think, yes, there is a problem in the relationship, but I also agree with you, Mike. When you've got two drivers in the same team fighting for a world championship, it's almost impossible for them to get on and be friendly.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you what, it's Lennon McCartney. Eventually you decide I'm better off on my own and I have things to do and I can't work with this guy anymore. You know what I mean? It just happens. It just happens.
Exactly the same scenario happened back at McLaren at my old team in 2007, and it again involved Lewis, and this time it was Fernando Alonso. It was a rare occasion when your nearest competitor is the guy across the other side of the garage. And, normally when it's another team, you close the garage doors down, you kind of close up shop and you fight off all the other competitors.
Sure.
It's a very different scenario when the guy's wearing the same overalls as you, driving the same car.
Sure. Mark, just one supplementary question, please, not to do with this race. You know the motorhomes that they have at all these races? Do they fly those blinking things around the world in big cargo liner aircraft?
They don't take them to the long-haul flyaway races. They go to all the Europeans on about 15 trucks each.
I see.
But that's it. Only Europeans.
So what, they would have driven those to Abu Dhabi, would they?
No, they didn't have them in Abu Dhabi.
No.
Abu Dhabi has its own permanent infrastructure that's built there that the teams are moving to.
I see.
Right.
Because they're pretty groovy, those
That's a
motorhomes, aren't they?
stupid
No,
question.
it's
to
not.
ask.
It's not.
Talking about Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
and
well,
the
Lewis
future of-
Hamilton's got one. He
future
said,
of
I'm retiring to
Mercedes."
the motorhome at the end of the race to get his
That's
sanctuary.
What they
Yeah.
call it. That's what they call the
Sanctuary.
motorhome. Is just the little hospitality area.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't actually mean that. Mark, listen, appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. That's Mark Priestley, former McLaren mechanic, member of the pit crew. Some interesting insights that he was giving us, except for the fact that you kept interrupting him just as he went to say something interesting.
Millions of our listeners found some of those facts very entertaining. In fact, they all wanted
Which
to know
facts?
about the motorhome. The motorhomes.
Well, what are you talking about?
Everybody want to know about the motorhomes.
No, you only want to know about the motorhomes because you used to have that caravan in North Wales and you've got some kind of weird fascination with things on wheels.
I can read what the audience want to know about it.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah, I've
Really?
got a touch, like, you know.
Well, what do you think they're saying now? Here's what Laura's saying. Don't go to Goodison on Sunday, Porky. We need a win. That's all they're saying. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport, we are the two mics. It's Ask Porky coming up this afternoon, by the way. So if you've never ever had one of your problems solved or a question answered, something that you never were able to find out the answer to, you can tweet us at the two mics, hashtag it Ask Porky.
Or a moral dilemma.
Or a moral dilemma.
Or a social inadequacy issue or
an
something like that.
Question, perhaps.
An etiquette question.
And Porky is here to help. He will
certainly
try and rush through as many of them as possible. We've got loads and loads of good ones. There's a Facebook page as well, the two mics, where you can go and post questions, and we'll be reading out the best ones and having them answered a little bit later on in the show. Now, how about this one from Stephen?
Yes.
He says, Steptoe. He says, Rosberg must have felt like me, stuck behind Porky's clapped-out Jag a few years back on the M4.
Oh, that's very nice. Who
So
was?
somebody
Who was?
that obviously knows you well.
No, I've never driven a clapped-out Jag.
Really?
My Jag has always been immaculately...
What about the one that was down in Gosport?
Oh, well, that's the green one. Well, yeah,
The one you used to just use as a sort of parking blocker,
Yes,
so
well,
nobody could get into your space when you weren't there.
I had that 10 years ago, so
You're rid of
yes,
it now.
was a bit. Yeah, it was a great car, by the way. It was. Somebody told me it was the best example of an XJ6 they'd ever seen.
The best example?
Yes, yeah.
Who told you that? Some passing tramp?
No, a motor dealer. You know,
A motor dealer?
Yeah.
You're just making this up
No,
as you go
I'm not,
along, aren't
no,
you?
I'm not, no.
How
No,
about
listen.
this from Gwyn? He says, MG is Lewis and Porky is Nico. Now, you might like that, even though you
is Lewis
and Porky is Nico.
So that means I'm the world champ.
That does. So you'd
good.
like that, wouldn't you?
Well,
but
yeah,
actually,
except
the worst driver and the one that will only be world champion once.
Yeah,
very possibly.
You know, Nico is only barely German. I didn't realise.
Yeah,
that.
his father's Finnish, isn't he?
Father's Finnish. He was born in South Africa.
He speaks
and he
about
lives in
5
Monaco.
languages or something like
speaks
that.
about 5 languages. Yeah.
Amazing.
But anyway, it's good. Now, listen.
I've got a few more tweets to read.
Please
out, if
read
you
them.
don't
I was
mind.
going to say, please keep
Johnny
sending
says
tweets
this:
in.
only Porky would give a Beatles reference during an interview about Formula One and Lewis Hamilton.
Yes, well,
which is true.
That's the thing. You know, when you get genii working together, they can often, collide and coincide, and they go their own way. You know
Here's
what
a
I mean?
good one from Stephen. He says, Mike Parry really had a sixth sense about the audience. He would have stayed at the secret mission.
Oh no! Please don't say that. It's
Yeah.
terrible. Now listen, mate, I tell you what I want to talk to you
Yeah.
about. I have some very, very good news here, and I mean this genuinely, right?
Yeah, go
now,
on.
for the last how long is it now? For the last 12, 13 years, I've been plagued by acute heart failure.
What, you can't remember how long?
Yes, of course I can remember.
What
It was
do you mean 12 or
2004.
13 years?
Well, it'll be 13 next year, so it's 12 this year.
Yeah.
So we'll say 12.
yeah, and in, 2020, it will be, almost 15 years?
16, yeah. Now, the point is, acute
Well,
heart
you
failure.
say this, right?
No.
You
What do
do
you mean?
say
What do you mean I
this.
say this? I was in hospital for 7 months.
Well, yeah, so you claim.
What do you mean? I was on the heart
Where's the
transplant.
evidence?
Well, go out there and ask some of the people who've been at TalkSport this long.
Well, they don't know where you are at the best of times. They never know where you are.
Talk to them about my desperate battle for life, okay,
Yeah.
in those days. All right?
All right, well,
No,
I'll see about that. But
Yeah.
all I'm saying to you, I'm suggesting to you is that, anyone that I know who's ever been on the heart transplant list has never been removed from it unless they actually perished.
That is why I'm a medical miracle.
Well,
Seriously.
you also claim to be a medical miracle.
I am a medical miracle. Anyway, now listen.
Yeah.
So for the last 12 years, I've battled against acute heart failure, and I have a diagnosed condition which is called dilated cardiomyopathy.
Yes.
Which means the left-hand side of my heart doesn't pump properly.
The left-hand side being what?
The pumping chamber.
No, but which way are you looking at it? If I'm looking at it, it's the right-hand side.
No, my left-hand side. That's
Your
right,
left.
Yeah. My
So
left-hand
my
side.
right.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it doesn't pump properly because it's stretched and bloated.
Yeah.
And therefore...
Much like the rest of you.
I'm just going to ignore that. You'll understand your stupidity, what you just said.
Really? Okay.
And I've been looking for a cure ever since, but there hasn't been a cure. The only cure for me is to have a heart transplant, and I took myself off the list when I realised...
Well, hang on, you can't take yourself off the list.
You can, and that's what I did.
Well, you either need a heart transplant or you don't.
I took myself off the list and went home.
This story gets more and more bizarre the more you explain it.
No, it's not. I said I can't stare anymore. My life is, flashing past my eyes, and I haven't, been in a studio for months.
But everyone that I know who talks about this dilated cardiomyopathy says that all of the things that you're able to do, if you really did have that, you wouldn't be able to do them.
I'm a medical miracle, I'm telling you.
Well, I don't believe that for a minute.
Well, I don't care what you believe.
I think you're just exaggerating.
I've had to live with the condition. Now then, the point is, it means only 1/3 of my heart works.
Really?
Or it works at 1/3 capacity,
You barely
right?
mentioned that.
Now, listen, what I've discovered in one of my scientific journals is that for the first time, a person who has my condition has been treated successfully with stem cell therapy.
Oh, yeah. Yes, this is the revolutionary new sort of scientific breakthrough type stuff, isn't it?
And there's a complete outline here about what happened. This guy went to St Bart's Hospital in London.
Right.
He was treated by a consultant cardiologist at St Bartholomew's. That's the one, by the way, next to London Bridge.
Yes.
Right? It's a teaching hospital.
Just behind the Shard.
Just behind the Shard, indeed. And this has taken place for the first time. Now, this is incredible news because you know why?
Why?
It's not a question of you having to go along and see if you're suitable for it.
Yeah.
If I have got it right, you can actually pay £10,000 and have it done privately.
Well, so it's not on the NHS, in other words?
Well, it says I think it is. It says here the procedure costs £10,000 and is currently available only at St Bartholomew's, funded by the Heart Cells Foundation. Now, whether that or not that means within the NHS it costs them £10,000, but if I can go along, I'd pay double that.
Surely, ethically, they have to offer it on the NHS. They can't just offer it as a private
if I can
thing.
Find
so
a private consultant...
So you quite happily jump ahead of people who were probably more ill than you, taking up medical time and making it more possible for them to possibly die while waiting for a cure.
Well, I don't want
because you would want to take because you would want to just lush a load of money down at the doctor.
No, I don't want anybody to die, but I've got £10,000.
That's very good of you.
And therefore I wouldn't be messing around. I'd walk in, say, Doc, here, it's a check, 10 grand, give me the injection, and I'd be better overnight.
Well, not necessarily.
Well,
couldn't there be some complication? I mean, you'd have to make sure that these cells were a match for yours, presumably, wouldn't they? Where would they get these stem cells?
What do you mean?
Well, where do they get them from?
Well, don't they get them from your spine?
From your spine?
I think so, don't they? Don't they? Well, I don't know. I'm not a stem cell expert.
Don't you think you should do some research into this before you get people injecting stuff into your heart?
I don't need to because you get doctors to do all that for you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'll read this through a bit.
I think you might want to read the document to the very end to see whether or not you'd actually be suitable as a candidate.
Yes.
Because, I mean, despite the fact that you're incredibly annoying, I wouldn't necessarily want you to have to perish on the old operating table.
Yeah, sorry. The first patient
certainly not before the end of next week.
Yeah. First patient have it done in hospital for 5 days for the stem cell treatment.
Yeah.
They give an injection of a drug which increases the number of stem cells in your bone marrow, where they are produced, right?
So you produce them yourself?
Then, that's right. Then you have a special needle inserted in the bottom of your back. I thought this was right. I told you. You have a local anaesthetic, and it's uncomfortable but not painful. They extract an egg cup full of stem cells from the bone marrow. Okay. This is what I'm telling you, see. I knew I'd got it right.
No, you didn't know it.
But anyway, we're going to try and get a specialist on to
All right.
to tell
we'll
us.
see if we can find out whether you're a suitable candidate.
I mean, look, if it's an auction, I'll pay 20 grand.
Yeah, well, it's not about money.
To the front of the queue.
No, I want
this injection.
No, well, you may do, but not at the expense of everybody else. This is Talk Sport. We've got loads more coming up. Talk Sport, we are the two mics. Ask Porky's coming up a little bit later on in the show, but we need to talk about Jose Mourinho, I think, in this hour, as well as looking ahead to the EFL Cup quarter-finals. Right?
Yeah. Do you know, I'd like to mention just first this terrible air crash down in South America. I mean, it sounds shocking. It's wiped out a football club virtually.
It has, basically, yeah.
It's terrible.
And a club as well that was sort of everybody's favourite club in Brazil, because they'd come up from the lower divisions and they got themselves to the final of... I heard Tim Vickery on earlier talking about how it's like the sort of Europa League final of South America. Absolutely tragic.
Shocking.
Really tragic.
And let's hope that, it's the bad news stops, so to speak. I know the numbers are, I think, finite now, but it's a terrible, terrible thing.
It really is awful.
It's apparently in a very remote place as well, and what a huge continent South America is.
Yeah, and the weather's very bad, and I think Tim's going to be on the show tomorrow, so by then we'll get
an update,
update from him, but also you'll be hearing updates throughout the course of the day, of course, here
indeed.
on Talk Sport. Now, let's talk about Jose Mourinho, because Jose Mourinho, as far as I'm concerned, has never really been the same since he came back to Chelsea the second time. I mean, that old
in
adage
his first season he was all right, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he wasn't quite himself,
he won the
was
Premier
he?
League again, and he was very jovial. But then, now, apparently, you're absolutely right for focusing on this, because apparently the experts who are Jose watchers say that what's happening at United now is exactly what happened in the second season at Chelsea.
But when he first came back to Chelsea, he was still not the original Jose Mourinho. He called himself the happy one. He said, I'm no longer the special one, I'm the happy one. And everybody thought, really? And then after the first season, he suddenly became the unhappy one.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it all went wrong with Eva Carnero and all of that stuff. That's all still very mysterious to me, that. And suddenly now he's in charge of this club, which is, a shadow of its former self at the moment.
It is, yeah.
And I mean, who knows how long he's going to have until, they say, well, this is really working.
I was absolutely shocked when he booted that plastic water bottle away for a number of reasons. Firstly, it shows he's completely lost control of himself. But secondly,
do you not sometimes wonder that he does that because he wants to look as if he's more angry than he actually is?
I don't know.
Because there's always some kind of mind game going on with him.
Well, I'm sure that managers are very aware of their presence on the line. During the England game that Gareth Southgate presided over, which we won 3-0, was that Scotland?
What, the England-Scotland?
Yeah, England-Scotland, was it?
Yeah.
A lot of reports I read said that Gareth Southgate appeared to be much more active on the touchline than he ever was as a manager anywhere else, you know what I mean? And fist pumping and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that was the game that was supposedly going to decide his future, right?
Exactly.
Which we're now told is going to be finalised in a couple of days' time.
But what nobody's pointed out when he kicked that bottle, that could have hit somebody, bottle. Without a shadow of a doubt, that could have hit somebody. And frankly, I think he should be banned for 5 games for that, because that's putting a missile into the air in a football match.
It's not very bright, is it?
It's a ridiculous
thing
to have
Arsene
done.
Wenger's done the same, hasn't he?
Yes, but Arsene Wenger's been at it for 20 years. Jose now is facing his 5th ban this season from the touchline. Right. That is ludicrous. That's a man who's lost control of himself.
And you can't think that in this day and age of management techniques and the way that, say, for example, Jurgen Klopp does it, that the Man United board would be very happy with it.
No, and again, the Jose watchers, these guys who spend day in, day out at the training ground and reporting on Manchester United and all that, they say that he's just completely seems to be losing his relationship with his players.
Well,
which
not
again
only
is
with his
what
players,
happened at
but with the officials. And you wonder what his relationship is like with the people inside of Manchester United, i.e. the members of the board, the people that hired him. What's his relationship like with them?
Yeah, did you know that at this stage
of the season...
Yeah. No, I agree
that's a
with
question.
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, the question was, what's his relationship like with the people with whom he works, who are above him, the ones who appointed him?
Sorry, I thought you were speculating on that, but if you want me to...
Well, I'm asking your opinion.
To answer that, they've got to support him and they've got to back him because...
That's not the question. The question is, what's his relationship with them?
I'm saying they've got to support him and back him, so we'll never know what the true relationship between the two of them is, because publicly they've got to support him. Yeah. But he's got 2 points fewer now than David Moyes had at this stage of the season, 2 points fewer than Louis van Gaal.
Van Gaal, yes.
Louis van Gaal had at the same stage of his first season. And you know what happened to both of them. So it's a very, very odd sort of happening here. And as I've speculated before, I wonder whether time has just moved on and left Jose behind, and he can't actually compete now with the thinking patterns of people like Jurgen Klopp.
Well, this is why I mentioned Klopp, because Klopp is now what you would consider to be the modern day manager,
he is,
right?
Yeah.
And Pep Guardiola as well. I mean, you see them getting animated on the touchline, but you don't often see them berating their players, do you?
No, you don't.
And you'd have to say that Klopp at the moment and Guardiola at the moment are doing much better than Mourinho.
That's right. No, I totally agree with you. And who knows where it will all end? Is he still living in that hotel? I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he said he was very lonely up there. But, I mean, he can't keep coming up with excuses. He can't keep saying, that he's unhappy because of A, B, C, D or E. I mean, he's supposed to be considered to be one of the best managers in the world. Yeah. And for the last couple of seasons, he hasn't been.
Yeah,
anywhere near it.
Totally agree. But he's got to sort that situation out. He should do something there. I was talking to... remember we met Alan McInally a couple of weeks ago?
We did indeed.
Macca, and we had a drink afterwards. And he lives up there. He lives in that footballers' triangle in Cheshire, and sort of the boards of Staffordshire and all that kind of stuff. And he said the number of houses that are available for him to rent out and live there are endless.
I mean, also in the football business, I mean, people travel around all the time. You don't have to stay in a hotel.
Of course you don't.
Do you?
No, of course you don't. But anyway, Everton are playing Manchester United on Sunday.
Yes.
It's a 4:00 game.
So are you going up and coming back?
Well, I'm planning to get up there on the old Rattler and get back. But
because we're working on the Monday here, aren't we?
I know we are, yeah.
At 1 p.m.
Yeah, that's right. It's a hell of a day, that, to get up and get back in time. And, of course, I always have the problem at the end of the game, not being able to get a taxi.
Well, I remember your trip. Yeah. What was that game? Your trip was logged by various people. There was a famous picture of you standing outside the ground with your arm up, waving a £20 note, trying to attract taxis.
I was, yeah. Or even a driver. It didn't have to be a taxy.
Why can't you just book somebody?
Well, because they can't get anywhere near the ground.
Well,
you have to walk a mile away.
Well, get somebody to come and meet you a mile away.
Listen,
isn't that a sensible thing to do?
I don't think you've been to enough football matches.
I've been to plenty of football matches.
The chaos that surrounds a football stadium when it's spilling out time.
Yeah, I've been to plenty of football matches.
You'd never find the right car. And if you...
Well, you wouldn't, but most people would.
And somebody else would find the car and they'd pretend to be me and they'd get in and shoot off
Who
the line.
would pretend to be you?
Well, plenty of people would want to pretend to be me. So that's what happens, mate. So, it's not quite as simple as it seems.
Really?
But...
I hope you're going to be fit for work on the Monday.
Well, of course I'll be fit for work, you idiot. It's not a drinking trip. It's
of course not.
It's a football science trip, isn't it? By the way, that's another thing. If
Right.
my heart got better, if I could get my heart better, I'd be able to enjoy some social drinking with you like we used to in the old days.
Well, I haven't
what
noticed that you've slowed down very much
Well,
in that department.
I have. I think you'll admit that I have.
Well, I'd have to say that the night you spent down in Sussex
Yes.
Was one of the legendary nights. I mean,
No.
you didn't seem to me to be any slower than you were many, many years ago.
Bladderation in moderation is the maxim
This is when
by
you turned
which
up with a bottle of Southern Comfort.
well, that's for you. Is the maxim by which I lead my
Now, how about
life,
this
okay?
from Chris? He says, "What a load of rubbish, lads." He said, "If Klopp had done what Jose did, it would be called as great fiery charisma we all like to see." I don't think that's true, actually,
No, I
Chris.
don't think it's true
because
either.
the point about Jurgen Klopp is that Jurgen Klopp does have charisma. Jose used to have charisma,
Yes.
but Jose now just looks like a grumpy old guy.
I totally agree.
Isn't that the point?
And he looks as though he's kind of doing things to distract our attention from the fact that his team's not working on the pitch.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly right. And Gwyn says this, that you're overreacting. He says, "Get real. A manager kicked a water bottle. Porky seems to think someone could have drowned."
Well, no, I don't think somebody could have drowned, but he could have hit somebody in the face.
He could have been a projectile
Yeah,
that would have
of course
been
it would.
quite painful. If
I mean, if
somebody
there had been a ball boy nearby or something like that, it could easily have done. Listen, I want to make our listeners aware of a big crisis we've got on.
What, another one?
Yeah, that is that wildlife rescue centres are struggling to cope with a number of undernourished little hoglets.
What?
Little hoglets.
Hoglets?
Yeah, a hoglet is a baby hedgehog.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and...
I thought it was a baby hedgehog.
No, hoglets they're called.
Hoglets?
And do you know what?
I thought hedgehogs were dying out.
Well, they are. This is the problem. And what's happened is, because of the mild spring, they woke up from hibernation early, okay?
Right.
And the problem is now that they're too young to go into... And therefore, the mating season started,
Well, hang on.
No.
If they woke up out of hibernation early,
yeah.
then they should be more developed now, shouldn't they?
No, because...
More than they should be.
No, young hedgehogs should weigh at least 500 grams by the time they settle down for their long sleep, okay, the hibernation. But many are being brought into centres weighing just 100 grams. And what's happened is... experts believe one reason is the mild spring, which led adult hedgehogs to come out of hibernation earlier than normal and start breeding.
Yeah.
This allowed many females to have an unusual third litter. Third litter, right? This is the third
You
litter.
can buy them for $6.99, you know.
What?
Hoglets.
Well, the hoglets are the third litter.
Somebody's selling them in Chelmsford.
What? Somebody in Chelmsford
Somebody's selling them, yeah.
What? Oh, really?
Oh, look, here's a baby albino, as they say in America, African pygmy hedgehog, for £100.
100 quid?
Yeah.
Well,
African pygmy hedgehogs, 125, Canvey Island.
well, there's a woman here who set up the hedgehog.
Well, this one for 160.
160 for a hedgehog.
Yeah.
Who'd pay that? But anyway, this woman in Berkshire says, unless it's going somewhere in a hurry, any hedgehog out in daylight who's this tiny is likely to be in trouble from predators.
All right.
We are looking after 174 hedgehogs, and they are much smaller than we'd normally see them at this time. They wouldn't survive a winter outdoors. They will freeze to death.
So what are we supposed to do about
terrible.
this?
This is terrible.
Well, what are you supposed to do?
Well, go looking for them and bring them into your house.
Well, where do you find them?
In your garden.
Really?
That's where you find hedgehogs, in people's gardens
You
and in
haven't got
fields. And in fields.
Well, you haven't got a garden.
Oh, do you know what happened this morning? You won't believe it. A miracle. I got up this morning real early, as I always do, and I was on my way out to feed my ducks and that kind of stuff.
Very frosty this morning.
Well, I was about to say to you, I ventured out onto the roof garden, and guess what?
There was ice.
The bird bath was frozen solid.
Well, it doesn't
solid.
surprise me.
Honestly, absolutely solid.
Yeah, well, it was 0 degrees.
I got a hammer and I thought I'll just,
Why?
Well, I thought I'd chip the top and so the birds could actually feed through the ice.
You've got a hammer in the house, have you?
Yeah, of course I have, yeah.
Why?
A toolbox.
A toolbox?
Yeah, a toolbox, yeah.
Well, because you don't ever use it.
I do.
You don't ever use it.
I do. I had to put my kitchen stool back together the other night because it collapsed while I was sitting on it. It's a bit difficult.
Yeah, that could be a message for you, that.
Well, it might be.
The kitchen stool has collapsed.
Yeah, but no, I smashed it, and unfortunately, it was solid all the way through. So it is getting very cold.
Ice does tend to be like that.
Very, very cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
What an idiotic thing to do. We'll talk some more about hoglets and a little bit more about the EFL Cup quarter-finals probably as well.
Absolutely.
This is Talk Sport. have you turned this into some kind of blues show?
No, now listen, do you know what that is?
I can't tell you. It sounds to me a bit like somebody like Steve Winwood, Clapton, something like that.
It's John Mayall and the Blues Breakers.
Oh, John Mayall, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason is that it's John Mayall's birthday today. He's 83.
83,
and he's
really?
still playing and performing, yeah. But I've never quite got the blues. I don't really understand what the blues is, do you?
You should love the blues.
I mean, do you understand
Well,
it?
yeah, of course. I mean, the blues is the basis of rock and roll. The
is
blues
it? Yeah.
really started in a sort of
New Orleans?
what you would call the deep south, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was largely sort of black music.
That's
at the
right,
beginning.
yeah.
And then Bo Diddley kind of picked it up, and Chuck Berry picked it up.
Bo Diddley.
And the Rolling Stones picked it up, and it became more of a sort of a rock sound. But then people like John Mayall and J.J. Cale and people like that would keep playing the blues.
Well, the Rolling Stones is all based on blues music, isn't it?
It is.
You know, move it to the left.
I mean, if you were going to analyse it, I think it's a collection of chords which tend to go together.
I have seen. Oh, is it? That's interesting. I've seen Eric Clapton. I've never seen him live, but I've seen him on the telly in concert, where he just literally stands on the edge of the stage, taps his foot, and plays all these sort of riffs which are sounding like very bluesy. You know what I mean?
I mean, you don't like it?
Well, I quite like it, but I couldn't listen to too much of it because he taps his foot and then the audience start clapping.
It's great club music. I mean, if you go to a club, and I used to go to this place called Dan Lynch's in New York.
Okay.
You might not remember. It was down on 14th Street.
No, I don't.
On the east side, and they just used to have
I didn't
guys.
used to go going that far down, frankly.
Well, you didn't like Greenwich Village.
I like the Village. I never go up over 96, by the way.
Well, the Village began pretty much at 14th Street.
Yeah, it did actually. Yeah, right,
and Dan Lynch's was this great place where you would go, and it was a very basic sort of bar.
Yeah.
But they would always have a band there, and people would come in and sit in and play the saxophone or play the drums, and it was great. It was fantastic. Lots of very good professional musicians.
Sure.
And it's that kind of, it's that kind of music. You have to be in a little dark, dingy place, which is very hot.
Yes.
Listening to some really, really good sort of blues.
You see, the Beatles weren't blues at all, were they?
No.
Nowhere
near.
They were rock music
Nowhere
or
near.
something.
People have already criticised you for bringing the Beatles into the show as early as the first hour.
I only mentioned it. Yeah. Now then, we've got a guest coming on.
We've got Paddy Power to talk to.
Indeed.
Because tonight, of course, it's the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup.
It sure is, yeah. And that's Liverpool and Leeds, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Let's talk to Paddy Power.
Paddy's Punts on TalkSport with Paddy Power. Check out the new and exclusive Cash Card Plus, where you can get instant access to your winnings. 18 plus, gambleware.co.uk, T&Cs apply.
Paddy, a very good afternoon to you. Are you a big fan of the blues?
He's not there.
He's not there. Are you there, Paddy?
Paddy!
I know he's not there.
Where are you,
Hey,
Paddy?
how you getting on?
Who are you? Yeah, are you there, Paddy?
No, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can't hear the show.
No, you can't hear the show.
Oh, dear.
So when he says no,
Yeah.
he means yes.
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think we have the technology. We just got to get it refined.
Tony says this: who in their right mind would want to be Porky? Perhaps a deluded, bladderated nincompoop.
Well, somebody who's trying to get to Lime Street Station to get the last train back to London on a Sunday.
Well, several people have been tweeting in saying that they go to Goodison in a cab all the time and leave in a cab. So maybe you're just using the wrong entrance.
No, I'm not. It's just that, if you don't get out in time, believe me, they're at an absolute premium cabs down there because everybody's jumping in them all the time.
And Janet says, have I just heard Parry attempt the Harlem Shuffle? Yes, I'm afraid you have, Janet. She goes, hashtag it's a massacre.
Do the Harlem Shuffle.
Yeah, I think Paddy's actually there now. Paddy, are you there?
I'm here.
Hello.
How are you getting on?
Welcome,
right,
very
gents.
well indeed. Yeah, you probably couldn't hear anything we were saying at all then.
But I'd say it was brilliant. I didn't hear it though, but I'd imagine it was brilliant.
It was brilliant, but it was.
Yeah.
We've had a conversation about hoglets. We've also had a conversation about the blues. But let's talk about the EFL Cup quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Okay, why not?
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, Newcastle now, on the back of their first home defeat of the season, got to be vulnerable at Hull, haven't they?
But they're away at Hull, aren't they? At Hull,
Yes,
yeah. So
yes.
I think funny, but this is an interesting game, isn't it? Because you just see where Newcastle are, doesn't it? I mean, like this, I think it's one of the most interesting ones of the matches the next 2 days. But yeah, they're 5-4. They're just favourites. Hull are 23-10. The draw is 23-10. So it means that kind of means that if Newcastle would be relatively short price favourites if they were at home. So they're possibly vulnerable, but they want to test themselves. One thing, I guess. Yeah, it could be a tight enough game. Probably decent scoring game, but tight game. 2-2 maybe. 23-10 the draw might be good.
But there's no doubt, Paddy, that Newcastle see this as an opportunity to really light their season up. They look as though they're going to storm back out of the Championship, but a bit of cup success along the way would not keep the fans happy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing, and especially if the fans go and see them beat Hull. I mean, albeit Hull aren't exactly got title contenders, but go and see them beat Hull. Imagine beating them by a goal or two, and they go like, yes, next year is going to be bright. So I think I agree, totally agree. Yeah,
Exactly.
Liverpool Leeds should be quite interesting.
Well, that's one of the most famous fixtures in English football. football historically, isn't it, Paddy? I mean, it's turned up some incredible games over the years.
It has, yeah, but it's like, I mean, it's probably been a while, hasn't it? But but Liverpool are very short now. They're 2-7 to win this, so I mean, it has a bit of glamour about this, the sound of it, Liverpool v Leeds. But actually, when the odds get put on, Liverpool should really win this. Leeds are 10-1, and the draw is 9-2. So I was just thinking Liverpool, they were disappointed at the weekend, but they should be able to put their foot down, I think, and maybe get a couple of goals in again.
I would imagine Mr. Klopp will perhaps field a few players who need a run out, won't he? And as he quite rightly say, the big favourites are at home. They've got the Anfield crowd behind them. I bet you'll see 5 or 6 changes in that Liverpool team.
Yeah, hopefully, and that's the way it should be. For the bigger clubs. I mean, that's why the beauty of these cups. I mean, people can bitch and moan about it, but the reality is, it does give the smaller teams a chance against the big giants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it does, and also you get the sense with Jurgen Klopp that he would quite like to win it as well, wouldn't you?
I'd say he wants to win everything. He's definitely. I mean, sorry, he comes across as the most likeable manager ever.
He does
because he's pretty straightforward, but also it does seem like that he'd want as much silverware as possible. None of this cynicism about sacrificing this cup for that cup and all that kind of stuff that was going on, and probably for the reason why, like Ferguson and Wenger and that in the past have probably done a bit of that is because they are the senior managers and they want change in the game and the fixture list and all that kind of stuff. But I'd say Klopp just wants to win as much as possible.
Well, funny enough, the late great Sir Bobby Robson always used to say he was mystified by what the rotation system was all about. He said every game I approach, I put my best 11 players onto the pitch to try and win it, and that was a fairly simplistic way of looking at things, wasn't it? Compared to
they all say now
they
play too many games now.
Yeah, well, that's right.
It's not like it was in the old days.
That's right. Now, Paddy, of course, I was at Southampton on Saturday. Everton got beaten, and they've got Manchester United up at Goodison on Sunday. Not looking too good at the moment. Not too bright at Goodison.
And that was actually going to be it was my bet of the weekend last weekend, which I just thought that Southampton might be vulnerable after the European
really?
night, but wasn't to be.
Yeah.
But as you know,
Everton are looking pretty poor at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
They're not looking poor. It's just that we haven't
exploded
into
they lost
the universe.
5-0 to Chelsea and lost 1-0 to Southampton. 2 games that he was at. If he's going to Goodison, he is the Porky Jinx, Paddy. You want to lump on Manchester United.
I mean, Paddy, isn't it cruel? People keep saying, "Push off, Porky. We don't want you here. You're a jinx and all that." It's rather cruel.
It is cruel.
It's all absolute rubbish, unless it's like lucky stuff. Like bad luck doesn't matter, but luck matters. Lucky pants, that matters. Anyway, you're big outsiders at home anyway. You're 12-5. United are 6-5, and the draw is 23-10. But come on, you can't be afraid of United.
Well,
come on. If there's ever a good time to play them, it's like now. They're in the worst ever run.
I totally agree. Take advantage. Now, Paddy, I've got a business opportunity for you here.
These ideas are always brilliant. I'm full of optimism for this.
Just ask Porky how his last business venture went when he went onto the internet.
You're still working anyway, Porky.
But not in the business that he invested in, the internet television station. How did that go?
Bankrupt. But anyway, there you go. Now, I am told, Paddy, this is quite interesting, that there is talk about opening a book on the outcome of the 4-day Brexit court case at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Now, that to me is revolutionary. Is that something that you guys would get involved in?
I mean, we've bet on the outcome of court cases before. It's got us in a bit of trouble in the past as well, to be fair. But it's something that we have done, and it kind of reflects. If it's a big talking point, then it will, and obviously that will be a big talking point. Then I mean, if people are speculating on it, why not put odds on it? Yeah.
And for instance, do you have a political division? So people might now be wanting to bet on whether or not Mrs May will go to the country and call a general election.
Well,
there's
always a book on that sort of stuff, isn't
there?
Yeah.
So second EU referendum. I'm just having a look here now. It's
but the bookies got it all wrong, didn't they?
It's 5-1 that there'll be a second EU referendum by 2019.
Yeah. Is that right?
But, I mean, the bookies mostly got the referendum wrong, didn't they?
Oh, we got it completely pear-shaped. Almost as bad as the US election.
Yeah, almost as bad as that, and also almost as bad as the last election here. I mean, because we used to have a phrase.
Shows actually you should bet on. But to be fair,
we always used to have a phrase in the newspaper business. Well, the bookies never get it wrong, but in fact, now they never get it right.
No, exactly. See, the problem is because we end up being too close to the opinion polls and stuff like that, and then it just when we're all wrong together.
Yeah.
On this Brexit case,
have you seen the time?
Yeah, you just hang on very quickly. Paddy will want to know this. I'm trying to help the boy out.
Yeah.
On this 4-day court case, it's going to be reported, a lot of it live, and the
televised, you mean?
Yes, and the betting will go up and down, Paddy, I think, as people see this argument being put in, and then somebody throws in that argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's
Excellent.
it's like we'll have to get it somewhere. Our legal eagles on it as well.
Exactly. That's
Well,
right.
perhaps when the case starts, they'll have to close the betting down. Paddy, thank you very much indeed.
Paddy, thanks a
much.
lot.
You can't have people voting during the process, surely.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. During the course of the 4-day court hearing.
I've got some advice for you here from your ping pong ball specialist. Steve says this: Porky, put a ping pong ball in a bird bath. Its movement will stop the water freezing.
Is that right?
How about that?
Well, thank you very much indeed for that tip. I will try that.
Yeah,
I
have
will
you got any
definitely.
ping pong balls at home?
I'll go and buy some.
Go and buy some.
Yeah, from the ping pong ball shop.
This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Ask Porky's coming up a little bit later on. If you haven't had a problem solved by the Porkmeister, now is your chance to do it. Of course, we'll be doing that coming up in the next hour. We're going to talk to Bob Butker soon as well about Tiger Woods and his comeback. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but we'll get into that because I've got something else to tell you.
Yeah.
Remember that ghastly hotel you made us stay in Liverpool?
Adelphi.
When we went and did a live show up there.
Yeah.
Apparently, the workers are now going to go on strike over Christmas in a row over pay. And what I could have to say to you is ever since we've stayed there, and people have said this on Twitter, the place has gone absolutely from bad to worse.
It has, yeah.
You know?
Well,
it got a dodgy food inspection, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
People said that their food was sort of below standard. And now apparently the workers are all going on strike.
Yeah, I sent out a tweet which was mocking, and I said, "So the workers at the Adelphi are going to go on strike. Will anybody notice?" Because, quite frankly, the service when we were there was deplorable.
Well, if it's the four guys who are bouncers on the outside who don't let anybody into the hotel at
Yeah.
night unless they've got a room key, I think they will notice because suddenly there'll be lots of people going into the hotel.
And then the guys behind the desk didn't seem to want to know about who was paying for the rooms,
Right.
and we got double charged for rooms and all
I can't
kinds of
believe
stuff.
you've allowed that to happen. It's a complete shambles.
Well, I'm afraid I didn't. In fact, I must check
you
up
really
with,
got to keep a better idea about what's going on with the money.
Yeah,
You know.
and then you'd go into the sort of the ballroom area there up the stairs and wait for a waiter to come and get you some drinks.
No.
Never appeared.
No.
Never appeared. I don't think there were any waiters.
I
To
don't
be
think
honest,
there were.
any waiters.
It's a shocking hotel.
It was dreadful.
I really don't know why you put us in there. Fortunately, I'm going to make sure we're in a decent hotel when we go to Glasgow to do the show at the Garage.
The reason was it was a
is in
walk away
December.
from the venue, and it was a walk away from Lime Street Station, so it's perfectly positioned on Lime Street itself.
you set up a tent in the middle of the Lime Street, and you could be a stone's throw from the station.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean you want to stay there.
Yeah, well, it's easy to whinge, right? It's easy to whinge.
Well, it's
That's
easy
all
to
you
whinge
ever-
when the
that's
three.
all you ever
no,
do.
it's easy to whinge when the three hotels that you've booked for our world tour this year have been the place in Rugby, which is one of the worst hotels I'd ever stayed in until I stayed in the Adelphi in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And then followed up by the place in Whitley Bay that didn't even have a bar.
Yeah, but you see,
don't know where you find these places.
You've been very hard on the one in Whitley Bay. The Whitley Bay was a lovely hotel, it was a boutique hotel, and to keep the riffraff out at
It
night...
was not a boutique hotel.
It was. To
Rubbish.
keep the great unwashed out at night, they merely had selective...
No, they had a machine.
Accessibility.
They had a vending machine with cans of beer in it.
No,
Never seen anything like it.
No, they had miniatures of gin and vodka and whiskey in it. Don't we?
Don't worry, I wasn't
forget
using
that.
it.
But anyway, I did a deal with the owner. And,
Did you?
Yeah, a guy called Michael, a very nice chap, and a very good hotel. And
How much did you pay for the rooms?
And I've no idea, about 85 quid, I think.
What?
And we shipped in half a dozen
Unbelievable.
bottles for an after show drink with,
Yes.
with a few chosen fans and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now listen, I want to tell you something.
Hang on, let me tell you this from Oliver. He says
okay.
the Stones or Clapton isn't the blues. Listen to Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, Robert Johnson or Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Yeah.
Well, we never said it was, but what we
said
did
they were
say
influenced
was
by.
that they kind of took the blues and turned it into what it is that they now do.
Yes, absolutely. Quite right.
Yeah.
Now then, we are. It says Paul can get a ping pong ball from Sports Directs next time he's in there buying his shirts from Pierre Cardin. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much
Cardin.
indeed.
It's Cardin.
Cardin. Now then, I tell you what I was going to say
What
to
were you
you.
going to say to me?
Eh?
What were you going to say to me?
My medical journals, they always arrive in the middle of the week, right? Now
Do they?
I look at them and all that. There's a fantastic development coming.
Well, even the monthly ones.
The monthly ones arrive usually about the 28th.
Uh-huh.
So it's about time now, isn't it? What's
It
the
is.
date today?
Well, it's
29th.
It's
Yeah, that's
29th,
right.
so they should have come yesterday.
They
They
did.
haven't arrived. They're obviously late.
No, they're lying on the doormat as I speak. Now then, what I wanted to say was, how frustrated do you get when you go to the doctor, you've got a heavy cold or flu or something like that, and you say, Doc, please give us some antibiotics, and the doctor says, no, you don't need them.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because
is very frustrating.
Sometimes if you've got a couple of days of antibiotics, they could cure.
But you know why they do that? Because they say that they don't want you to become they want antibiotics to cease to be useful, so
Yes.
that you could actually take too many of them and they would cease to be of any use. But
Well-
I'll tell you what's worse than that is when one of your kids is sick,
Right.
Because they never want to give kids antibiotics.
Really?
And one of my sons was off school all of last week, and took him to the doctors on Friday because clearly this thing wasn't going away.
Yeah.
And do you know what he said?
Yeah.
He said, "I'll bring him back in another week if he hasn't got any better."
Really?
And that was
didn't
it.
give him anything?
Didn't give him anything.
Well, you see, apparently...
He said he couldn't work out whether it was a virus or not.
Yeah, well, this is...
I'm like, well, you're the doctor.
Well, you see, this... And now, funny you should say that, because this is the very core of the story.
Yeah.
Apparently, if doctors diagnose you've got a virus and not an infection... no, hang on, what is it? No, let me see.
Well, if it's a virus, they can't treat it.
If it's a virus, they can't treat it,
Yeah.
so they won't give you
Well, I could
bacteria.
have told you that.
But if it's something else, like what else can you have? An infection.
You can have an infection. Yeah.
That's right, in your lungs or something like that. They will give you. Now, the reason it's going to change for the better is this.
Right.
What they're talking about is divesting doctors of the responsibility to issue antibiotics for colds and give them to the chemist.
Right.
And what you do is you go in. The chemist then gives you a scrape on your tongue or the inside of your mouth.
Yeah.
And in seconds, with the new machine they've got, they can diagnose whether it is virus or bacteria.
Really?
And if it's bacteria, they'll give you
So
antibiotics.
does this mean lots of people will no longer have to go to the doctor?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Which is great, isn't it? Because
Well, not necessarily, because if you go to some chemist, they're already lined up and full of people trying to get stuff off them, and so you'd be standing there all day.
No,
wouldn't you?
I don't think you would. I mean, I use chemists a lot because I get my monthly delivery of tablets there. I take 16 tablets a day. So you need a forklift
I thought
truck.
it was 27.
No, it's reduced from what it used to be a few years ago. And you need a forklift truck to get my tablets back home, you know what I mean? So I spend a lot of time in
You
chemists.
get them every month.
Every month, yeah, that's right, yeah. Now, what I was going to say is, you see, I'm smarter than the average bear because
So you say.
when I last got my tablets for my heart, right, it coincided with the doctor prescribing one for a cold I had.
Oh, yeah.
And they were
Well, what does the doctor give you for a cold?
antibiotics.
Really?
This is what he gave me, antibiotics.
Well, he must have had more than a cold.
Well, I did. I had an infection on my lung, I think, or something
Well,
like
that's
that.
not a cold, is it?
Well, I don't know what it is. But anyway, he gave it me.
Why
So,
can't you just tell the truth?
I'm telling the truth.
You had an infection on your lung. That's not a cold.
Well, I don't know
That's
what it
quite
was.
a serious problem.
Yeah, okay. Well, whatever. But anyway, so thinking that, I'll probably get one again this
Thinking
winter.
aloud.
Because this was last winter, right?
Right.
So I think this
Yeah, you got a flu shot last winter, didn't you?
No, I had the flu shot the year before.
And
And,
you
I had a
still
cold
got flu?
twice. Yeah, twice. Yeah, it was useless. So what I did was I actually cunningly got the prescription for the antibiotics doubled.
Why?
Because I showed it to him, and then when he turned his back, I took it away. And then when he came back, I gave him another one. And he gave me 2 doses.
What do you mean? You actually forged one?
Yes, I did actually. Yeah,
You forged one?
Yeah. But I'm
pretty sure that's an offence.
No, it's not. It's not because remember
Forging a prescription.
Remember, I get all my.
You're not a special case, you know. You can't just be treated differently to
No,
everybody else.
no.
That's why you hated jury service, wasn't it?
Oh, God,
because you got
it's
treated
terrible.
the same as everybody else.
It was terrible.
If they could have put you in a separate room
Yeah.
with a gold throne to sit on, you'd have been happier.
Not at all, but they do rule your life. Right. The judge says, we'll break now and we'll be back at 2:10. And you've got to be back at 2:10. What are you doing? What are you doing wandering around the town for an hour? And all you've got to do is go outside. I've got to catch up on all the phone calls. I've got to get all the emails sorted in an hour. All the text messages. I've got to phone the suppliers, order new DVDs, phone the distributors, make sure the DVDs have gone out on time to New Zealand and all this kind of stuff.
Don't forget to check whether you've paid everybody twice.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I was going to say, yeah, so on the antibiotic front, I think that's a great step forward because one of the reasons doctors won't give you them is because they, as you quite rightly say...
I've always suspected as well that one of the reasons they don't give them out is a financial one too, because they're trying to save money, because they spend so much money, they waste so much money in the NHS, that they actually, every opportunity they have to not give them out, they don't do it.
Well, you see, this is where I didn't actually nick any antibiotics, because what happens is I pay for a card.
Well, you pay, don't you?
Well, I only pay once a year. I pay a card of about, I think it's 96 quid every December, and then they send me a plastic card, and then I get all the drugs for the
What does
rest
it
of
say
the
on
year.
a plastic card?
It says, like, NHS,
What, first class NHS? Was it a priority customer or
something like that. Yeah, no.
That's outrageous.
No, I think I'm called, like, special case, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you certainly are that.
yeah,
no
that's
question.
right, yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We're talking to Bob Bupko about Tiger Woods coming up next. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Ask Porky's coming up in the next hour. So if you've got a problem you need solving, you've got a dilemma you need sorting out, here is your chance to do it. You can tweet us at the two mics, hashtag it Ask Porky, or indeed look for us on the Facebook page and put it there as well. We're going to talk now to our good friend Mr. Bubka over in the United States of America, because Tiger Woods is going to play in his own tournament, apparently. Well, we'll see if he's going to play in his own tournament, the Hero World Challenge in the Bahamas, right? He hasn't played for 470 days competitively. Let's find out from Mr. Bubka why he thinks he's coming back. Bob, very good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon to you. I can't believe it. I'm on with the two mics. Tiger Woods is teeing it up in a golf tournament. This is my Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's just like the old days.
Exactly. You know, it's quality stuff. Bob, great to have you back on. And as one of the world's experts on Tiger Woods, perhaps you could tell us exactly what's going on in the man's life now.
Well, it's going to be very interesting when he tees it up for real on Thursday. As you guys said, it's been nearly 18 months since he's played a competitive round. Early indications are that, he's in a good place mentally. We don't know where his golf game is. It was just a while back that he committed on a Friday and then withdrew on a Monday. So, I'm still leery. We got a couple of days to go before Thursday, but this is his own event. He's down there. I'm going to be interested in just a couple of hours. He's going to be talking to the media, and that's where we really get our indication of, is this a new Tiger Woods? We knew the old Tiger Woods. He didn't like the media. He never really cooperated. Everything was forced out of him. He never gave you any answers. We're hoping that he's a little more forthcoming in a couple of hours, and we hope that he has some semblance of a golf game. There's no doubt that he causes excitement, and if we could have Tiger back playing really well, with Henrik Stenson playing well, Jordan Spieth winning down in Australia, we could have one of the great years in golf in 2017.
I mean, it's part of this, the fact that it's his own tournament and that there are commercial sort of niceties, shall we say, that have to be fulfilled. And if he doesn't turn up at this tournament, then maybe a lot of other people won't either.
Oh, good point, Mike. There's no doubt about it that because this is for his foundation, he would lean to this event. But there are a couple of other factors. There are only 18 players in this field. So to get a top 10 finish, you only have to beat half the field. So that would look good on his record. And there's no cut. So no matter what he shoots the first 2 days, he's going to play on Saturday and Sunday. So when you take those two factors, it's an ideal scenario, on top of the fact that Tiger Woods has played this golf course hundreds of times. He retreats down there. He brings his kids down there to go fishing. He's very comfortable with the area. So a lot of factors going in Tiger's favor. Hopefully we'll get a good result.
Indeed. Is Tiger still a huge one-man commercial machine, Bob, even though he hasn't been on a golf course for 18 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just incredible. Probably 4 times the amount of media are here this week in the Bahamas than would be if he wasn't playing. Right. I mean, and he's on every TV station. He's everywhere he's mentioned. I mean, when Mike and Mike can take time out to talk about Tiger,
Indeed.
I mean, he is big time.
Well, that's absolutely right. Absolutely. But the other thing as well about him is that he managed to keep his games that he has played secret, because he's talking in the last couple of days about having, got more of his shots back and having played more golf. And having,
where would all that have happened?
Where would have all that happened? And wouldn't somebody have tried to kind of sneak a peek at what his swing looks like and all that?
Well, it's funny you say that. A journalist took a Instagram of Tiger's swing, and as soon as that was put out, the PGA Tour quickly went and confiscated that, and
really?
It's like it's like the CIA on his actions. He played a practice round the other day, believe it or not, 9 holes. He played with Derek Jeter, the New York Yankee baseball player who just recently retired. So he's not going out there with stiff competition. Right. You play against a baseball player, you expect to play pretty well. Who knows? I mean, Tiger's greatness when he was at the top of his game, I mean, he was incredible. I mean, you don't win 14 majors, 79 PGA Tour events. He was number 1 in the world for well over 600 weeks.
But he's now what? But he's now 878 places below that. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and he's still got a little bit of a wise guy in him. He did a little TV spot this morning, and he was asked what his objective is for this season. And he said, in typical Tiger fashion, I want to finish in the top 1,000 in the world. So it got a chuckle, but certainly he's not disclosing anything.
No, indeed. Now, nobody really expects him ever to return to competitive golf as a serious contender anymore, do they?
Well, some people do. I mean,
anything's
some
possible,
people
right?
Well, is anything possible? I mean, a man who's not played his sport competitively for 18 months, I mean, you think of a footballer, you think of a boxer. That's incredibly hard to pick up the pace after that sort of gap from your own sport.
Well, you're right about that, Mr. Perry, and it's really not the length of time that he's been away. It's been the medical problems that he's had to endure. Yeah. I mean, when you say bad back and you say golfer, I mean, that's a lethal combination. Now, he's had numerous surgeries. He's recuperated. He's had the best doctors in the world. Yep. He's very meticulous on his physical, training and whatnot. So maybe he can recover. We'll just have to wait and see. Lee Trevino, who suffered from a bad back most of his playing career, said that unless Tiger Woods changed that golf swing that he was using, he wouldn't last long. The back would go out. Now, if you change your swing, you're really changing your ability to play the game.
Sure. And you're changing the kind of shot. So what about the sort of the clamour around his return? I mean, is it going to be all over television over there in the States? Because one of the things you and I have spoken about before, Bob, is that when Tiger did disappear from the scene, the ratings for all the TV golf went down the pan.
Yeah.
Well, this tournament will be covered almost like it's the Masters,
really?
Almost like it's the Open Championship. I mean, it's just crazy, because we haven't had Tiger for a while, and when we did see him recently, 18 months ago, he was hitting shots that you and I would hit. Maybe I would hit him. Maybe you guys are better than me.
Porky's golf is something to behold. It's not actually like golf at all. It's more like hockey.
I can't be good at everything.
Can't be good at everything. What, you admit now that you're no good at golf?
No, I didn't say that. But I've been busy lately, Bob. I haven't had time to practice my swing. Bob, when are we going to see you back over in Blighty?
Well, I can't wait to do it again. One of my favorite memories of my association with Talk Sport is there's Mike Parry walking down the street, and I make believe like I'm drunk, and I bumped into him. Maybe I was drunk.
Well, he almost certainly was.
He was startled.
I was. It was in Birmingham. It was outside a boozer in Birmingham.
Were you there for doing something at the Belfry or something?
Something like that, yeah. And I was going to push Bob back till A, I saw the sizeman, and B, I saw it was Bob Carr. Yeah.
Great stuff, Bob. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Bob.
We'll be talking to you, I'm sure, over the course of the weekend as Tiger makes his return to this this tournament, which is his own tournament, you have to say.
Yes.
And as Bob said,
where is it? In the Bahamas?
It's in the Bahamas. Yeah,
a bad place
to
go.
Called Albany.
Not a bad place to go and cover, is it? Eh?
It's not. No, not a bad place.
Have you been to the Bahamas, by the way?
I never have. No.
I went once on the Disney cruise ship.
The Disney cruise ship?
Yeah.
What did you do that for?
Well, I went on the inaugural sailing.
Oh, it was a freebie?
No.
A freebie?
No, it was a facility
a
trip.
freebie.
And,
from Florida?
From Florida, that's right. Yeah, we went down to the Bahamas, and
there's casinos all over the Bahamas, isn't there?
Yeah, there are loads of casinos there, but it had big Mickey Mouse ears on it. This ship, you know what I mean?
That'd be embarrassing. I'd be embarrassed with a ship like that.
It was a bit, really, and it was the first place. In this studio here today, the studio now changes colour, doesn't it? All the time.
Well, no, it doesn't actually. No,
it's pale blue now.
No, the studio
and it was red a few minutes ago.
The studio is not changing colour. There are some different coloured lights.
Colours we speak. It's grey.
No, there are different coloured lights.
Which changes the colour of the walls.
Make it look... No, it doesn't.
It does. What colour are the walls now?
The walls are white.
No, they're not.
They're always white.
They're going red.
No, they're not. There is a red light.
And now they're orange.
No, there's an orange light shining.
I don't know why you're denying this.
No,
it's green now. It's green.
The walls are the same colour, you plank.
Anyway.
It's the light that's making them look different.
Yeah, but it looks like the walls are changing colour, because what I was going to say to you
they're not actually changing colour,
that was the first time I ever went into a restaurant where it changed from black to white continuously throughout the evening. It was amazing.
You sure you weren't having some kind of episode?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't having an episode at all. And it was an amazing ship. Absolutely amazing ship.
How long were you on it for?
4 or 5 days.
Really?
Yeah. It was great.
Meet anybody interesting?
Lots of interesting people,
really?
Yeah, added them to my social
Did you?
network.
You're still in touch with them all?
Some of them,
Really?
yeah, some of them. You know, down
Very
in the
much
Bahamas,
doubt
you've
it.
got to behave like a Bahamian. You know what I mean?
Oh, Bahamian.
Yeah, Bahamian. That's right.
This is Talk Sport. Some music to go along with the walls changing colour for you.
Yes, well, indeed. I mean, the walls are changing colour. You've just been pedantic and saying, no, it's not the walls changing colour, it's the lights. Well, to all intents and purposes, mate, to the naked eye, it's the walls changing colour, okay?
Yes, indeed. Now, you've given me a croissant to start this
I
hour.
have.
You've always said to me you don't think we should eat while we're doing a radio show.
I wouldn't.
Well, why have you just eaten one?
Well, the thing is that we have a social engagement after the show.
Yeah.
And one thing I will not do is
We'll go to the
subject
pub,
my...
you mean?
Yes, that's right, yeah. I will not subject my stomach lining to unbridled attack by copious amounts of alcohol.
No, that's
not
very
that I
wise of
intend to. Not that I intend to
No.
ingest copious amounts of alcohol.
No, of course not.
But
That would be unlike you.
These things sometimes get out of hand.
Yes, indeed.
So
Now, I've got
I
a couple of
thought I
questions
would
for you.
give it some blotting
I've got a
paper.
couple of questions for you. Greg says this: does Porky's NHS card give him nectar points?
Oh,
Does it?
of course it doesn't, you idiot. It's an NHS card. It's not a commercial deal.
And lots of other people are saying that actually, tell Porky it's an NHS prepayment certificate. Says
That's
Ian.
it.
Costs £104 to anyone. No, you don't have to be special to get one.
Oh, really?
So anyone can get one. So whoever sold you that as an idea
Yeah.
to make you feel as if you're actually important, it means nothing. It means
Well,
nothing at all.
that's not the way I see it. But anyway, there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, we shall see. Now, should we
Yeah.
tell people about the new little feature that we've got coming up
Yes.
later on this week?
Yes, we have, yeah.
Which, when you say it's new, I mean, it's new in the sense that we only started it last week. But it's Porky's mailbag, basically.
Yes, it
or
is.
Postman Pork, as we call it.
Postman Porky.
Yeah.
And look, writes a letter
Well, no,
with
it's
you.
Postman Pork.
Eh?
Because it's supposed to be Postman Pat.
Oh, I see.
You know, it's one
Postman
syllable.
Pork. Postman Pork.
You don't have to sing the song, but the
So
point
hang on,
is, it's
Postman
supposed-
Pat rhymes with his little black cat.
Yeah.
So Postman Pork,
What does that rhyme
Postman
with?
Pork, Porky's going to give you some talk.
That's pathetic.
It is a
That is
bit,
actually pathetic.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I
Not
agree.
good at all.
Anyway,
Anyway, the point is that you send in some letters,
Yes.
which Porky will read out on air
I will.
for the first time, having just opened them.
yeah, we will open them in the studio
and
and
he'll
read them out.
you read them in the style of a sort of either very geriatric person or somebody who can't read.
No, I'll read them in
That's
the
what you do.
style of an inquisitor. Now, the address is the two mics, Talk Sport.
Yeah, go on.
18 Hatfields.
Good.
That's Hatfields, all
Why are
one
you
word.
spelling it?
Well, because people might think it's two words. 18 Hatfields is all one word.
Well, I think it would still get here, even
That's
if it
the
was
name
two words.
of the street.
Yeah.
And the postal code is London SE1, that's
Yeah.
Southeast 1,
Yeah.
8DJ. And that's easy to remember because DJs, of course, are the people who occupy the the ground floor of this building.
Working for Virgin.
Working for Virgin, our sister station.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. Scooby says this, Porky, I paid £120 for the York House and I wasn't allowed to stash booze. The
really?
York House was the place. Was that the place in Whitley Bay?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, you say 120 quid. That's not a cheap hotel. Now, listen, I'll tell you what I'll talk to you about, right? The police have responded to concerns from people in one particular community about burglars and all that.
About burglars?
Yeah, by advising people to grow a thorny hedge in the garden to stop them getting into the garden.
Really?
Yeah. Now,
When you say a thorny hedge, what you mean
Yeah.
like proper, really big, thick hawthorn type
yeah,
hedges?
that's right, yeah. And I think that's
Well, why
quite
wouldn't
good
they just walk
advice.
through the gate?
Well, presumably you lock the gate, I suppose. I don't know. But, I mean, I think that's... I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Is this not the same police who went around telling people they shouldn't leave their windows open in the summer?
I don't think
So
it's the
that
same
people would climb
force.
through?
I'll find out, really, because I saw it in one of my Law and Order journals. And
Law
I'll get
and
to,
Order journal?
I'll get to it in a minute. But listen, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. Did you see the pictures from yesterday's service of commemoration for the Duke of Westminster
I did.
at Chester Cathedral?
I did see them.
Didn't
yeah.
think it was magnificent?
Not really, no. I thought it was a rather ridiculous picture.
I'm
sort of
a-
a throwback to the feudal times of this country.
No, I mean, a lot of members of the royal family there, they had armed police there and all that. But to me, it said everything about the existing class system in this country. Because all these
Which
guys...
should still not exist, should it?
Well, all these guys turned up in these tweed suits,
Yeah.
right? Tweed three-piece suits, looking like... Who was that famous golfer who died in the aeroplane that just flew on until it crashed? Who was the famous golfer?
Payne Stewart.
Payne Stewart, yeah.
Yeah.
They all looked like... What were those trousers he wore?
+4s.
+4s. So all these guys turned up in these tweed suits with +4s, that's socks up to their sort of halfway up to their knee,
Yeah.
and their trousers tucked in and all that. And they were actually gamekeepers and gillies on the Duke of Westminster's various estates, which he's got in Scotland and
Lancashire.
Lancashire.
That look a bit sort of ridiculous at this day,
Well, no, to me, it said everything about the existing class system in this country, which I fully and wholly endorse.
Why do you endorse it?
You've got to have dukes, and that was the Duke of Westminster. He was the chairman of my my school governor's board, the King's School Chester, right? And you've got to...
Was that why they chose Chester Cathedral?
Well, of course they did, because his family seat, which is called Eton House, is in Eton, the village just outside Chester.
Right. Well, why is he the Duke of Westminster then?
Because he owns most of Westminster.
Yeah, well, that seems a bit unfair.
Yeah, well, not really. No, he actually owns Belgravia and Kensington.
And now he's
places
passed
like
on
that.
to his son, who now owns all of it.
Who is 25, which is a great thing. Now, of course, I am a friend of Chester Cathedral.
Are you?
That is, I've got an official badge, which says,
We've never seen this badge.
Why
don't you bring the badge in?
I'll bring the badge
I don't
in,
think you've got a badge. I
have, yeah. Friend of Chester Cathedral, and that means, twice a year I get the newsletter and all that, and they thank me very much for my support and all that.
What does the newsletter say?
Oh, well, it tells you about all the people who've died and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And,
does it title you to a sort of a plot inside the cathedral?
No, it doesn't, no. But it's about, new recruits and the various, functions going on, if you want to go on a coach trip to, like, Wells Cathedral or something like that,
Sounds great.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Can't wait.
Sort of day we should have, day out we should have. But...
Mike Parry +1.
Yes, that's right, yes. But I'm now going to make an official announcement because at the moment my contribution to Friends of Chester Cathedral is £100 a year. Uh-huh. Which might not sound like a lot, but
it's not a lot, no.
If 1,000 people contribute £100, that's £100,000, right?
What? If
1,000 people contributed £100 a year each, that's 100,000.
Yes.
Okay? I have decided now to up my donation to Friends of Chester Cathedral.
How long has it been £100 for?
Since I signed up about 10 years ago.
All right, so you haven't taken account of inflation then?
I haven't really. And by the way, I signed up when I was bladderated. I'd been on a pub crawl in Chester, and for some unknown reason ended up in the cathedral. And I signed this form. Right. I didn't know what it was really. And then I found suddenly money was coming out of my bank account. Not a lot of money, but for this.
So now you're going to pay them more, are you?
I'm going to pay $250 a year.
Uh-huh.
This is what I've decided. Hey?
Why?
Well, because I think I should make a bigger contribution. And I did so like seeing these pictures from Chester Cathedral yesterday, which, made it clear to me it's a very eminent building in this country, and therefore it must be supported, OK?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Now, it says here, distinctly down to earth, the Duke of Westminster was rarely seen without a Diet Coke and a cigarette.
Well, he smoked all his life, that's for sure. And but he's the 68th richest man on earth. And had a fortune of £8.65 billion.
And he was a natural sportsman, it says here. As a youth, he excelled on the football pitch with an ability to strike the ball equally well with either foot.
Yeah, that's right.
But guess what? He was discouraged to pursue this further by his father.
Yes, he was, actually.
Because presumably the Duke of Westminster's father thought that football was beneath him.
He did, actually. And when the Duke was young, I mean, he was a bit of a rascal, He used to run around the estate firing off air rifles at car lights and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Charming.
Sort of thing they used to do, I suppose.
Charming. Not content with owning half of London.
Yes. No, that's right,
Well, that's exactly what's wrong with the class system in this country.
Why?
Because this guy is able to do that, and he's able to then pass on all of his ownership of land and property to somebody else who happens to be his son.
Well, who else would you give it to?
Well, he shouldn't own it. Why should he own it? He was only gifted it by some king years and years ago because of some service that he did.
Well, no, it was the marriage of two families, and it was all wasteland then, Mayfair and Belgravia.
I don't think Mayfair's ever been wasteland.
Well, I think it was, and they married together, and the unison was some of the richest property in the world.
Really?
Now, the thing is, though, if they didn't own it, who would?
Well, it
what
could
would you
be
do
owned.
with it? Give it away?
Well, it could be owned by individuals. It could be, one of the reasons that you can't buy property in these kind of parts of London is because it's all owned by one guy. Well, and all you can do is buy a lease.
Well, if somebody came along and said, "Look, I'd like to, buy this off you, buy that off you." That's called commercial property negotiations, isn't it?
Yeah, but commercial property negotiations don't happen when somebody's gifted the whole, basket full of property. It's not fair, is it?
Yes, it is, because people build on it, they lease it, they freehold it, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's great to have an establishment like that because it brings order to the world.
Right. Okay.
But I wouldn't want to be one of these gamekeepers. I wouldn't want to be walking around in +4s looking like a servant.
You wouldn't want to.
No.
But that's the point. I mean, the class system would completely and utterly exclude you from attending anything like that, even if you were a friend of Chester Cathedral. They'd say, "No, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to come in because you're not part part of the high and mighty of the land.
Yes.
Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about
So
that.
I don't know why you keep absolutely and utterly perpetuating this ridiculous myth.
What do you mean? What ridiculous myth?
The ridiculous myth that the class system's a good thing. How about this from Bernie?
Yeah.
He says the Duke of Westminster's son avoids inheritance tax, which could support the NHS.
Yeah.
He would still be worth about £5 billion.
Yes, that's
So
true.
I think you're on the wrong side of history on this one.
Well, I obviously I want to support the NHS. It's been very good to me in my life, but we waste a lot of money on a lot of things in this country. Believe me.
Yeah, indeed. Some people are saying you're wasting money on one of these NHS cards because you could get it free.
What?
They say you could get it free.
Really?
Yeah. So you may want to look into that.
Might have to look into that. Yeah, good
This is
idea.
Talk Sport. That's all right.
Yeah.
Here's one from Johnny to kick it off, which he sent in at the 2 mics. He said, if you could time travel, Porky, where would you go?
I would go back to September 1939. I would want to be a fighter pilot with a Spitfire, and I would want to get up into the sky and defend my country against the Germans. I do believe they were the finest men this country has ever produced.
Really? What if you got shot down then?
Well, I get shot down. I'm sorry, that's a consequence of war. But I would desperately want to enlist and go there and fight the oppressors.
Okay. Is it better, says Stu, to make the wrong decision at the right time or the right decision at the wrong time? Bit of a tongue twister, that one.
Yeah, it is a tongue twister, and it completely depends on which situation you find yourself in. I mean, the point is, people who make decisions generally get on in life, and people who don't make decisions generally don't. So what I would say is, don't be afraid to make a decision, because when you make a decision, you are in charge of your own destiny. If you don't make decisions, you leave a vacuum, and other people will make them for you.
Okay, here's a football one here from James, who says retrospective evidence was used to punish Allardyce for his misdemeanour. It was also used to punish Suarez for biting Ivanovic and used to punish John Terry in his case as well towards Anton Ferdinand. One of the biggest issues in the game is diving, for example. Pogba's dive at the weekend was laughable.
Yeah.
Why do you feel FIFA, UEFA or the FA have made no attempt to punish diving retrospectively?
Well, I think they should, but I mean, they don't punish diving enough when the actual game's going on. That Pogba dive, which led incidentally to Jose Mourinho kicking the water bottle, right? That was those two were directly connected. Was quite ridiculous, and frankly, I hope that one of these days a player's going to get sent off for simulation, because if you are trying to win a penalty in the penalty area and you don't get it, you're effectively committing a fine, which to my mind is a red card fine, i.e. Inventing a penalty that's not there. And I hope a referee very soon will send a player off for it.
Yeah, but what about the retrospective dealing with it? Why can't they do that?
Well, again, I've said to you, I hope they do. I hope they would look at it and say, but I mean, the Pogba one was dealt with anyway, wasn't it? He was booked, wasn't he, for simulation?
Yeah, right.
So that one was dealt with, so it wasn't a good example. But I mean, I'm all for it, yeah. I would urge the football authorities to go back on simulation.
I booked a flight fairly late recently, and it was delayed by 10 minutes, which meant that I was late for work. What would my best excuse be if that was the case?
Hang on, you say a flight?
A flight, yes.
Well, a flight that's 10 minutes late is not late at all. You make 10 minutes up in the air,
Right.
and by the time you've got on the plane and got off the plane, that's nothing at all. But, I mean, I wouldn't make excuses for being late anyway. A, I'm not very often late, but B, if I was late...
We were late for a show once, weren't we, coming back from Edinburgh?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we couldn't help that because the plane was delayed, wasn't it? But, quite frankly, just be honest about these things. Once you start inventing excuses for not getting to work on time, you will find that you'll become known as a lead swinger. You should be at work on time for most of the time, and on the times you're not, be honest about why you're not.
David says this, how can I stop my children using Americanisms like can I get instead of can I have?
By teaching them how to speak English properly. The problem is that there's so much television available to children these days, they are bound to be influenced by what they watch. Bobcat Bob, is a perfect example of the intrusion that Americanisms can make into the English language.
But the whole thing is merged now, though, hasn't it? I mean, people now use Americanisms all the time.
No, I don't think
so. You hear it
so.
on television, you hear it on commentaries, you hear the fact...
we got a good game.
Well, we
we
now use the word assist, which we never used to use at all. It was never a thing.
Well, assist is the invention of something that's happening. It's not the invention of a word. The word's always been there. It's just been applied to a different situation. But just teach your children to speak English properly and buy them a full set of the books of Charles Dickens and get them to read them, and then they'll speak English properly.
Anthony says this, at least twice a week on my bus journey to work, I see this woman who always puts her feet on the seat opposite. Am I right to ask her to take her feet off the seat?
Yes, you're absolutely right, yeah. But you have to ask yourself this question. If it's a woman sitting opposite and she puts her feet on the seat, would you ask her to take them off because she's a woman and you don't feel physically threatened? Imagine if it was an 18-year-old boy who's 6 foot 1 inches tall who had his feet on the same seat. You have to ask yourself, would you ask him to take his feet off the seat? And you have to apply that thinking process to both situations. I never ask people to take their feet off the seat when I see them because I would one of these days fear, literally being assaulted by some guy who's on drugs or something like that who had a go at you.
Yeah.
So on that basis, if I think I'm physically stronger than this person because it's a teenage girl, I don't ask her to take her feet off the seat because I'd be a coward if I didn't do that with a 6'3" man.
Matthew says this: who's doing the better job with the resources and playing budget available to them, Ronald Koeman or Barb Bradley?
Well, neither's covering themselves in glory at the moment, although Bobcat Barb has the same resources, basically, as Everton do now, because every Premier League club gets about £100 million a year, no matter what happens. So you can't hide behind any more about we haven't got the resources. I mean, of course, there are free money clubs, as I describe them, like Chelsea, like Manchester City, whose owners have limitless amounts of money. But generally speaking, clubs of the size of Everton and Swansea should be on an equal playing field.
How about this from Matt? He says, which European construction will be finished first, Gaudi Sagrada Familia or the Two Mites website? It's a very good question.
What's the Gaudi Familia? What's
It's
that?
the big cathedral in Barcelona.
Oh, is it? Is it not
the
built
big
yet?
white thing.
Is it not finished?
It was famously unfinished.
Is it unfinished? Oh, I didn't know
Have
that.
you never been there?
No, I haven't.
How many times have you been to Barcelona?
Never been to Barcelona.
You've never been to Barcelona?
Never been to Barcelona.
Oh, you've never been to the Camp Nou?
I have never been to the Nou Camp, no.
Astonishing.
I know,
What
absolutely.
a big gaping hole in your cultural experience.
I think it is. I've been to most other
Well, you better get it organised.
great football grounds in the world, but I've never been to Barcelona.
Maybe she's going to do a show there.
I can tell you that the Two Mikes website will be up and running before Christmas. In fact, only this week I was in correspondence with the architects of it, and it is coming along spiffingly.
OK, great. Here's one from Mark. Do you think World War III will happen in the next 100 years?
No. I don't think World War III will ever happen because by that time they'll have built defence systems which eradicate all forms of aggression against other people, and you'll just bat missiles away. I don't think it'll ever happen. The world is already changing in terms of combat, and guerrilla warfare has now taken over. When I mean guerrilla, I mean terrorism warfare, because that's the way that you can specifically hit the targets that you're after.
OK, Matthew on Facebook says, Porky, my family are nagging me to put the Christmas decorations up. I keep saying it's too early and they need to wait. Should I stick to my guns and hold off?
Definitely stick to your guns. I didn't admire a lot of what David Blunkett did as a... no, is it David Blunkett? Yeah, I think it is David Blunkett, yeah, and when he was Home Secretary in Tony Blair's government.
Yeah.
But he said only recently that no Christmas celebrations or promotions or...
What's it got to do with him?
Or records should be played or made available until December 1, and I agree with him.
What's it got to do with him?
Well, I don't know, he's quite a famous guy, isn't he?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
James says this, Porky, had you not met old MG, where do you think you would be today without him?
Oh, I'd be a millionaire. And,
you already are a millionaire.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I would be in a position of less stress and angst than I'm in now. Most of the stress and angst I've suffered in life has been as a result of working with old MG, OK? Because, he's got this laid-back attitude to life, and I take on all the pressures of everything we do, and as a result suffer. That's probably only 1/3 of my heart works.
It probably is. Johnny says this, is a Norwich to Cambridge commute every day worth it for a well-paid job?
That's a hell of a commute, that, isn't it? Because Norwich is in Norfolk and Cambridge is in Cambridgeshire.
Well done.
Which is, kind of just at the end of the old, which is it, the M3? No,
M11?
M11, thank you.
The M3 goes south.
M3 goes south, that's right, I use it all the time. And I have to say, that is a hell of a journey. I hope it's a very good job at the end of it.
Pierre says this, what is the most prized success in sport? Olympic gold medal, Wimbledon World Cup medal, Champions League medal, heavyweight belt, Formula 1, etc.
It's impossible to say.
When you say etc., Pierre, I mean, there's quite a lot you've left off.
Exactly. It depends what sort of sport you're pursuing. If you're pursuing a sport and it's boxing, you want the World Heavyweight Championship, and if it's tennis, you want Wimbledon. So I'm afraid you've got to apply the top honour to each individual sport. They're each as good as each other.
Oh, so they're all the same then?
Yeah.
Yeah. When was the last time Everton won anything?
What's that got to do with it?
Just a quick question. Just a quick question. One final
95,
one.
FA
from
Cup.
Steve. My partner, Kath, has got me the Two Mites DVD for Christmas. Is it unreasonable to put the said DVD on for the family Christmas day after lunch?
I
wouldn't.
Well, I would say have a few drinks first. And
you can't play it in front of the children. It's got a 15 certificate, mind you.
It's got a 15 certificate, but that's only because, I can tell you now, it's only because there's no sexual deviancy in it. You only get the adult ones are only made adults.
What are we doing that one?
I don't know when we're doing the sexual deviancy one.
Thanks for mentioning that.
But no, all I can say is it's very, very entertaining, very interesting, but old MG does let his mouth run away with him a bit, and particularly near the start.
So that's a no then, I think.
I think it is.
That was Ask Porky. More of the same this time next week. Got a lot of tweets to read out before the show comes to an end,
Okay.
Mr. Parry. How about this one from Thomas? He said, any chance of a shout-out? We're 2 university students and have just made a crystal radio from scratch and have tuned into Talk Sport.
What is a
crystal radio? Is apparently a very rudimentary type of radio.
Oh, okay.
Which is a favourite of amateur radio buffs.
Oh, is that right?
And what you can do with it is that you use the actual the airwaves, as it were, to power it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have
I
any
see.
outside of electrical source.
Is it like a wind-up radio?
It's not like a wind-up radio, no, because you don't wind it up.
Oh, I see. Well, I wonder, how does it just receive? I tell you who used to use those.
You use a copper wire, right, and you can sort of build it with very, very small rudiments, like a sort of thing you do on Blue Peter or something.
I see.
But the actual the radio wave itself is what powers the radio.
You know who used to use those, don't you?
Who?
Prisoners of war.
Really?
Yeah, in the Second World War.
Is that right?
Inside.
But they can't. I don't think they can do anything but receive, though. They can't.
No, that's what I mean. But they wanted to know what was happening in the world,
right,
the war, the war movement, the war effort, and all that kind of stuff. And if they suddenly found out that the Allies were 30 miles away, they might decide to break out. You know what I mean?
There was so much propaganda, though, wasn't there? You wouldn't know.
You
could have heard Lord Haw saying the war was over and they'd lost.
Is that right?
Well, you might have. What do you mean you didn't know about Lord Haw?
Oh, I know about Lord Haw. You know where he was picked up? He was picked up in Germany by a sharp-eyed British soldier who said, because he was Irish, Lord Haw. They took him back to England and they hanged him for sedition.
Nick says this, I think MG should take the title of Man of the People after Porky's out-of-touch views on the class system.
What do you mean?
Well, you're out of touch views on the class system.
What do you mean out of touch with who?
You're out of touch with most ordinary
They're
people.
not out of touch with the Duke of Westminster and his family.
No, well, maybe not.
Not out of touch with the royal family. Not out of touch with landowners and occupiers of Belgravia and Mayfair.
Right.
I
So that's
don't
who you
understand.
associate yourself with, is it?
Je ne understand
There's not many of them
rien.
listening to Talk Sport. I mean, his own father disparaged him and told him he didn't want him playing football.
Well, that was the class system in those days.
Well, it is now. Glyn says this, I'll see your 2 months for the police to look at CCTV, Ray your shirt theft, and raise it to 3 months. It took them to get my money back for a crate of milk nicked off my truck.
Really?
When I phoned them within 30 seconds with the registration number of the miscreant.
Yeah.
If it takes them this long to solve relatively minor offences, how on earth do they ever solve major crime?
It's a good question, I mean, how many months is it now since your shirts were nicked?
Well, it's at least 2.
2, yeah. I mean, unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable.
And yet, they're very specific about chasing people up for what you would call minor crimes.
Hate crime.
By the
tomorrow.
way, whilst I was on the, doing my duty, jury service and all that, do you see that young lady who's 19 who funded her own defence in a case where a local authority took her to court because she refused to pay a litter fine because she chucked a chip on the floor for a pigeon. And the pigeon came down and took the chip. So then she was issued with a littering order.
By presumably a litter warden rather than by an actual police officer. Right?
Exactly, somebody passing in an order. She refused to pay it. Local authority then, pressed the case.
Right.
She then, it got more and more serious, finally man and all that. She then was ordered to pay it. She went to court. She defended herself on the grounds that there wasn't any litter because the pigeon took it.
Right.
And guess what? She won.
That's a good point.
Yeah, she won.
Corrected law.
And what a ridiculous sort of prosecution. Anyway, listen,
Madness.
I've got an amazing thing for you here. I've found out something that John Cleese has said that is funny in the last 40 years.
Really? Well, he used to say quite a lot of things that were funny when he was in 40 Towers.
Well, that's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's 40 years ago. I was going to say, for the last 40 years, John Cleese hasn't said anything funny.
He's
Just
been doing a lot of whinging, hasn't he?
Whinges and moans about all his various divorces, the amount of money he's got to pay his ex-wives, the fact that he has to go on, alimony tours and all that to raise the money.
Right.
Whinges about everything. Whinges about, his country.
You're not in danger of building this up too much, though, in case it's not actually funny.
Anyway, he recently told this joke. He said, I lived in Weston-super-Mare. At Christmas, my father used to take me out in a boat 10 miles offshore at sea, and I used to have to swim back. He said it was a ritual we did every year. He said it wasn't that hard. It was getting out of the sack that was the problem. I think that's quite funny.
Well, it's not that funny.
For him, that's quite funny, don't you think?
Well, I suppose so.
And what they're saying is,
bit
his
dark,
father used
isn't
to, used to bundle him up
dark.
in a sack.
Well, you
every
would find that
Christmas
funny
Day.
because of your bizarre relationship with your family.
Row 10 miles out to sea, throw him overboard, and then
In
he
a
had
sack.
to, in the sack. Yeah, he had to fight himself out of the sack.
I don't find that
That's
particularly
quite funny. It's like that joke that Bob Monkhouse used to tell. I saw him live once actually at the Chester Gateway Theatre when I was on the Chester Chronicle. I had to review his show, and one of the jokes he tells was he said,
Well, Bob Monkhouse cannot be ever mentioned now without the two versions comment coming out.
What's
can you?
that?
Well, the famous Alan Brazil clip.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, absolutely.
You forgot about that?
No, I hadn't forgotten. I was sitting there when he actually said it.
I was going to say.
And it was the Gary Bushell was the TV
That's right.
reviewer. Yeah. No, what he said, yeah, I remember my dear old father so well. He died in his sleep. Unlike the 40 passengers on his bus who were screaming behind him.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can't say those kind of things anymore.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
It really is.
Absolutely shocking.
How about this from Mr. Shaw?
Yeah.
Typical plonky Parry. Rabbits on about stopping Americanisms in our language. Seconds later refers to it as December 1.
December 1, that's true.
And Neil says, finally, Mike Parry admits he's a millionaire.
What? No, I didn't admit that.
You
You said it. You said
No,
it.
I said, well, you're already on. And you said yes.
Well, yes, but all I meant was that I meant on paper, you know. I mean, everybody's a millionaire on paper, aren't they?
What?
Everybody's...
Nobody is a millionaire on paper.
Of course
I'm certainly
not.
not. How are you a millionaire on paper?
Well, some people, after the, in the sort of 50s and 60s, and it happened to a lot of people we worked with in Fleet Street, they went and bought a house in, like, what is now a fashionable part of London, like, Hatch End or
Do you
something.
mean Crouch End?
Crouch End, that's right, yeah.
Where's Hatch End?
I don't know where Hatch End is, yeah. Crouch End, that's right, yeah. And where's those other places? Islington and places like that.
Islington, Highgate.
Highgate and all that. And they were just sort of ordinary suburbs in those days. And they'd buy a house for £10,000. I remember Bob Miller.
Or even around the corner from here. One of those houses down the road.
Absolutely, but I remember Bob Miller, who was the Scottish father of Fiona Miller, who is Alistair Campbell's partner in life, and
indeed,
and have been
not
for 30
his wife.
years.
She will point
not his
out
wife. They proudly say we never got married.
Yeah,
and Bob, I think, was father of the union as well, father of the chapel, wasn't he?
He might have been.
Union
I didn't know.
boss. Yeah, he was pretty active. He was very left wing sort of family, and I remember...
So you would have despised them then?
Well, no, I don't despise anybody. I don't despise anybody, each to their own. But I remember Fiona telling me that I think his father, Bob, bought this house for about £10,000, sort of the 50s, like that. And then even by the time... we last worked together in the early 80s. It was worth about 350 grand then.
I told you famously...
And it's now worth well over $1 million.
Famously at the Mirror, when Piers Morgan was there, he decided to do this big investigation into why houses were costing so much money.
Yes.
Only to discover that every single reporter on the paper had a house on paper that was worth more than £1 million.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So they had to quickly abandon that.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
On the basis that they couldn't use anybody as a case study.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, you know that police force I was telling you about that said plant a prickly hedge?
Yes.
Right, I found out where it was.
Where is it?
It's Essex. Essex Police.
Right. You
police...
can't actually just plant a prickly hedge. I mean, you have to grow the prickly hedge. You can't just go and buy a prickly hedge.
You can. You can go to a
expensive,
garden centre and you can buy it and you can plant it along your border.
No, I wouldn't say so.
It says a police force criticised for advising residents to deter burglars by growing a prickly shrubs. The police force, Essex, have described it as defensive planting, the defensive planting scheme, right?
Well, they sound a bit like plants themselves if they think that's going to stop burglary. Because how is it going to? Like I said, just walk in the door.
No, I mean, prickly bushes. And I don't think this is a bad idea. I think if you're going to have a hedge, have a prickly one.
Yeah, well, how are you going to get... Maybe you're going to walk through a gate, though.
Well, no. This must be where the gate is locked or something like that. You've got a tall gate or something like that. But it says, here we go, a woman in Tendring, I presume that's in Essex somewhere, has been broken into twice in the past 5 years. She said, it's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it, being told by the police to grow a rose bush outside my house in the hope it stops me being burgled.
It is a bit, especially if they come back and nick the rose bush, which they might do. Apparently people have been stealing hedges because actually it takes a very long time to grow a decent hedge.
It does.
So if they are so expensive, people will start stealing them.
Well, I had one house once.
Seen the time, by the way.
Yeah, don't worry about the time.
No, I'm worried about the time.
I had a house once where I grew a hedge down the side of the back garden because it was completely open when you got there. You know, a lot of housing estates, they leave you with rubble.
Put a fence up.
Eh?
Why don't you just put a fence up?
I wanted a hedge. And so what I did is I went to a garden centre and I got about 30 conifer trees, little ones.
Right.
And within 2 years, it was a proper hedge.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew what I was doing.
That's quite a long wait, isn't it?
I knew what I was doing.
How many times did you get burgled in the meantime?
No, I never got burgled. I've always had the most magnificent security provisions in every house I've worked in. Nobody could ever break in.
The porky jinx will now kick in.
No.
Well, considering that you published your address on the internet.
I did, actually.
And that everybody knows exactly where you live and knows when you're not there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm amazed nobody's broken in.
Oh, yeah, but that might have been a ruse, you see, to make them think that
No,
I
it
don't
wasn't.
really live there.
No, it wasn't a ruse.
I'm going to move house soon anyway.
Are you?
I've decided.
Yeah, I would do that if I were
Yeah.
you. You're going to take the locked gate with you?
No.
You know, the drug dealer's gate?
No, I'll sell that to the person who moves in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mites. We're in Hawksbee and Jacobs all week, of course, and for most of next week as well. Daddy says, I must go for a drink in Hatch End. What's the nearest tube station,
Yeah,
please,
that's right.
Forky?
Yeah.
Nobody knows where that is.
Listen, that's very London-centric, that. Most people don't know the names of the suburbs in London because most people
Including you, even though you live here.
Who've got a head on their shoulders don't like living in London, and I can understand why.
Yeah, all right. I like living in London. I'll tell you who doesn't like living in London. That's Beaky. Graham Beecroft. He's going to be at Liverpool Leeds tonight, the EFL Cup quarter-finals. Beaky, very good afternoon to you.
Very good afternoon, chaps.
Yeah. Now, the good news is, well, I've got good news and bad news, right? But good news is Porky's not coming to the Liverpool Leeds game, but he is coming
Thank heavens for that.
to the Everton Man United game. So you might want to be careful about that because the last two games he's been at, right, which was Southampton and Chelsea, they haven't, not only have they didn't even score a goal.
Yeah.
Disaster.
Yeah. And have you got any theory behind this, Porky?
Why we're not scoring?
Your attendance at the game and
Porky
results.
jinx. Porky jinx.
No, Graham. I've been to hundreds of games at Goodison that you've been to,
I know.
and we've seen Everton. Are you going to be at Goodison on Sunday?
I am not sure whether I'm a Goodison.
Okay.
Yes, I am. I think I am.
Good,
yes,
okay. We'll hook up there.
Yeah,
That's
indeed,
great.
we will. Give us a buzz.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
is
that old chestnut.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't call me.
I didn't have a signal when you rang.
That's right. Now listen, Mickey. Is old Kloppy going to put out a weekend team tonight because he's going to give the run out to some fringe players?
Well, he's been forced to put out a weakened team, really. When you weigh up the situation that they've got in terms of the forwards or, attacking midfielders that are not available to him. Coutinho not available, Sturridge not available, Ings not available, Lallana coming back towards fitness but probably won't be risked, ditto Firmino. So he's got very few options there up front right at this moment in time. Yes, he will play some other... I wouldn't like to call them fringe players, but I'd call them squad players. But it just depends upon, how many I think that he's going to put in this time, because they are, of course, very close indeed to getting to the semi-final, and they're, of course, to the final. And if you win the final, then you're in Europe the following season. So, he'll take some risks, I'm sure he will, but just how many we shall have to wait and see.
Yeah, but
and what sort of Leeds team is he up against?
Well, he's up against a side who are doing pretty well at the moment. They're now in the playoff places, of course. They're doing very nicely, thank you very much indeed. They've only lost 3 of their last 14 matches. They've won their last 3 away games, and Gary Monk is doing a very nice job right there at the moment. So they're in a confident mood, I've no doubt, coming into this one. And if they were to get anything from this game in terms of a positive result for them, then it would be a massive fillip for them going forward.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum, the Leeds situation, Beaky, because it's a long, long time since you and I have witnessed that, that classic Liverpool-Leeds fixture, which used to be perhaps the outstanding one of the football calendar.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They were the 2 top teams there in the 60s, early 70s. So they were 2 really good sides. Bill Shankly was the manager at Liverpool, and Don Revie was the manager of Leeds United. And
Everton, of course, won the league championship in 1970, just to remind you.
They did indeed,
yes. Last time they won it.
Yeah.
Was that the last time they won it?
No, it isn't.
No.
They won it a couple of times since then. But anyway, they were great matches, great players on both sides. I mean, you look at the Leeds team, and they had a wonderful side then. Billy Bremner, of course, there's a statue outside Elland Road of him. Mick Jones and Johnny Giles, who was my favourite player. He was a wonderful, wonderful player. If you looked at Johnny Giles on a football field, he had marvellous balance, 2 great feet, but he was nasty as well, so he had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, he
well, the
did.
one thing you can be sure of, it won't be that nasty, because we don't really have nasty football matches much anymore.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
It's
not allowed.
Shame. It's a terrible shame.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there are 2 ways of looking at it. It gives the chance for the real talented players to shine a little bit more, I think, and it doesn't give the chance for the choppers to put them in hospital without much pain going in their direction in terms of suspensions or anything like that.
Yeah, well, you say that, but I like to see a bit of brutality in football matches sometimes to just to up the ante. What's
in the pub a little bit later at night.
Yeah. What's your view of the situation at Goodison then, Beaky?
Well, do you know what? This is a strange one to me, and I can't quite make it out right at this moment, Mike, because they started the season so well, Everton.
Yeah.
They were playing very nicely indeed. Okay, they didn't come across any what you might call top teams, but they were playing nicely. All the right things were being said about the manager and his relationship with the players. And I just wonder right at this moment whether that has collapsed a little bit bit. For what reason, I'm not sure. But it doesn't look to me as though they're putting in the same effort, the same energy, the same will to win in the game as they were early in the season. And when you look at the likes of Baines and players like that who aren't playing to their maximum, and I know he's been injured, so it doesn't, it's not easy to come back. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that right at this moment. So I think it's something that Ronald Koeman is going to have to sort out quickly.
Yeah, well, he was meant to have shored up the defence, wasn't he? I mean, that was what he was going to be brought in for.
That
was what he was famous for
but
doing.
it's creaking, that defence now, isn't it, Breaky? I mean, Jagielka's getting older. Ashley Williams was old anyway when he bought him, and it was only a stopgap. And Leighton Baines is now, an older player than he has been when he was at his peak with England.
That's right. And he's had a few injury problems as well, Leighton Baines, which haven't helped him. But he came out and said that Jagielka must improve at the weekend. I know that the thing about Dutch footballers and players, indeed the nation as a whole, is they like to speak it as they see. But I'm not sure in all instances that that's a sensible thing to do, especially when you're talking about, the captain of the club having to improve. Jagielka knows he has to improve. He knows he's not playing at the top of his form right at this moment. I don't think it needs a public, examination of that by the manager to do him any good.
Sure. Do you think Liverpool will get through to the end of the season in the form they're in now?
I think it's possible, but I think they will need, some recruitment in the transfer window because I think these injuries, all right, any side would have problems with the likes of Coutinho, Sturridge, Lalana, Firmino, Ings not being available all in one area of the field. Any side would struggle there. I don't care which team it is in the Premier League. But they do. It has shown a little bit that they're a little bit thin here and there on the ground in other areas perhaps as well. So I think that there'll be at least one purchase during the transfer window. But, the question is that you're hinting at, Mike, are they going to be able to sustain the same level of effort that they've put in so far, this Gegenpressing game which Jurgen Klopp likes to employ, and get through to the end of the season? Well, I don't see why not. I really don't see why not, but we shall see. We shall see.
We shall see. Beaky, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beaky.
We'll be bringing you updates, of course, throughout the evening of all the goals as they go in, if they go in the EFL Cup quarter-finals. Newcastle playing Hull.
Sure.
And then, of course, Liverpool versus Leeds. A couple of people have actually pointed out that Hatch End is somewhere between Harrow and Watford.
That's right.
And has its own London Overground station.
Oh, does it?
According to Tony. He says it's Steve says it's between Pinner and Stanmore.
Oh, well, there you go.
You must have that in your head, you see, for some reason.
Yeah. Well,
did you ever go out with somebody from Hatch End?
No, but when I used to get the train out to Harefield Hospital, it goes through Harrow and Wembley. Harrow.
So it must be subliminally inside your head.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and maybe I passed through that station in that direction. Could
Bill
well be.
says this: a half hour of listening to Porky is equivalent to a space cake and a large plate of magic mushrooms.
What?
I've never tried psychotics, but I'm sure that's what they're like.
Yeah, well, you just don't worry about it. Don't worry about these things.
I'm not worried about it.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried about it. Show's nearly over, by the way. Tomorrow we got Porky Vision, of course. This is TalkSport.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics.
Had you not met old MG, where do you think you would be today without him?
Oh, I'd be a millionaire. And,
you already are a millionaire.
Yeah, well, that's true. I can't even tell you the colour of the wallpaper inside the jury room.
Oh, well, you can't tell me you had wallpaper then, can you?
No, I can't. Norwich is in Norfolk and Cambridge is in Cambridgeshire.
Well done.
Which is, kind of just at the end of the old, which is it, the M3? No,
M11?
M11, thank you.
The M3 goes south.
M3 goes south, that's right, I use it all the time. I didn't admire a lot of what David Blunkett did as a, is it David Blunkett? Yeah, I think it is David Blunkett, and when he was Home Secretary in Tony Blair's government, but he said only recently that no Christmas celebrations or promotions or
what's it going to do with him?
Or records should be played or made available until December 1, and I agree with him.
What's it going to do with him?
Well, I don't know. He's quite a famous guy, isn't he? It's a game I'll never forget. I'll never forget.